All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Tackle and Tacos, a fishing podcast. This is episode number 49. We are really close to 50. We have an absolute doozy, a D-O-O-Z-Y doozy of an episode for you today, tonight, whenever you're watching or listening to this. This is going to drop the Tuesday before the Bassmaster Classic, which is indeed aptly named the Super Bowl of bass fishing. If you listen back, without a doubt, if you listen back to our prediction episode, which we did sort of silly, a way too early classic prediction episode like 4 weeks ago, I picked, who did I pick? Polinick. And obviously you can't not pick Jason Christie. Nate picked, who did you pick again? Tell me. Christie and somebody else, right?
Yeah, I think it was Christie and Kenta Kamara.
Kenta Kamara. That's a really good option. Lola, I can't remember who Lola picked. I think Christie was on her radar. I think she also said Luke Palmer potentially. I think she might have said Brandon Polinick, or even just like the homies like Gussie, because they just, we're all like homies now. And so just picking people that she actually liked. But that's going to be really exciting. And so for this episode, what's so dope about it is around this time, it's sort of like iCast, sort of like Christmas. Because a lot of companies will roll out dope new stuff that they can debut at the Bassmaster Classic. And one of those companies, we are so honored to have their co-founder, Dan Miguel of Great Lakes Finesse, is on our show tonight. And we're just so pumped to talk to him about fishing, about some taco stuff, which we haven't asked him if we can talk about tacos, but we just have to, about family life, about tournaments, like how do you come up with the stuff you come up with as far as lure sizes and baits and whatever. And I think that's going to be really dope. So Nate, walk us through some of the business stuff, and then we'll get moving.
Yeah, like you said, stoked for this one. But of course, check us out on all of our social, Instagram, Facebook, at Tackle and Tacos. That's where you can find us. Same thing for YouTube. We'll be airing this podcast like all of our most of our other ones. Tackle and Tacos is the channel, so pretty straightforward. And of course the store where we got some Tackle and Taco merch, hats, shirts, stickers, all the goods that everybody loves nowadays. So tackleandtacos.com, that's where you can find that stuff. So hit us up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man. Go get you some stuff. We got those sticker sheets, which we've sold quite a few of, which is kind of old school, silly, but kind of dope at the same time. Like it's a big 8.5 by 11 sheet with a bunch of our designs and decals and logos and stuff on it. One of those on there, on that little sticker sheet, is the Working Class Bow Hunter logo, which is like an antler with like an old school mic as the brow tine. And speaking of them boys, got to give them a shout out, a big thank you. We're honored to be a part of their Working Class Bow Hunter podcast network, which is a lot of words together, but it's a dope group of people who we believe in, who we've been friends with forever. So shout out to them. Also shout out to our sponsors. So this whole thing, our presenting sponsor is Grizzly Coolers, and specifically you can kind of see one here, Kenai Coolers. They make a whole line that they designed specifically for what do you want to say? What products, what design, what style, what color, specifically for fishermen. And that's pretty stinking dope. So you can go to grizzlycoolers.com, find the Kenai link, and then anything you buy, if you use the code WCB, you will get 10% off, which is pretty rad. So make sure you check that out. Giltech, makers of what we think are the finest swim jigs on planet Earth. So finesse swim jigs, full-size swim jigs, northern swim jigs, where it's like the fluorocarbon weed guard, so they just disappear in the water. And it's been wild, dude. It's March here in Wisconsin, in northern Wisconsin, and we've been going out smashing the fish lately. Just on our little lake, we've been using the Giltech stuff. And then, so not to get all controversial right out of the gates, but we've been using a lot of live scope, a lot of forward-facing sonar, which, if you know anything about it, just puts the fish in the boat for you. It's like a little crane beam. Yeah, arm goes out and scoops them up. Like it's like cheating. But we've been using live scope, and like in the lake that we fish on, there's a ton of stocked trout, but there's no way the trout that we've been catching have been stock fish. I'm talking like 20-inch rainbows, like 19 and 20-inch brown trout. And when you go out with your kids and we're catching them on like spinning tackle, we go out by this dam, and then the easy tip, like if you don't know a lot about live scope, or you have it and haven't utilized it a lot, you really want to go out there, and if you have talons or something, if it's shallow enough, put them down, and then you can just with the trolling motor, so you can scan around. Right, you just kind of want to move that thing back and forth, left to right, and we'll go out and we'll find them just dotted all over the live scope, and then you cast at them, they're right there, bang, and all three of us will hook up on these big old, sorry, there's bugs in here because it's so warm lately. All three of us will hook up on these big trout, and they shoot up out of the water like smallmouth, like just 4 feet in the air. And it's been super, super fun. We've been using Giltech jigs. We've been using lipless, and I've been jerk baiting. Who catches trout on jerk baits? I may be the only man to ever done that. Right. But it's just been crazy fun. So Giltech stuff though. So from the swim jigs to the swim baits to the Ned head stuff, the tube jigs that they make with the marabou skirt out of the back. So when it's at a rest, it still has that little bit of undulation, that movement. You can get that only at hookandarrowsupply.com. Hookandarrowsupply.com is the only place to pick up Giltech stuff. And trust me, you want to do it. It's legit stuff made by just like a hard working, blue-blooded fella in Wisconsin, like who had a dream to make some dope stuff. Is just doing it. And then our newest sponsor, which we're so stoked on, is Loophole Optics. So you'll see the stuff behind us. Loophole is obviously, if you know anything about hunting, you know that they've been making some of the best optic stuff for literally. Oh, hey, Lola's here. Come on in. Here, come this way, because otherwise the lighting setup. Oh, you have your Kenai cup.
Yeah. Uh-oh. Her and I both got our Kenai cups.
Did you time this?
You know, we stay with the Kenai cups.
Did you time this to come in right when we were talking about sponsors? Maybe you did. But Loophole has been making their stuff for literally over 100 years in America, in Oregon. And so if they make like famous best rifle scopes, you know the sunglasses, which is the team that we're a part of, are going to be dope. And after using them a lot now, I can attest they are incredible.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Durable, incredible polarization.
I got a quick loophole story on the sunglasses. Took the kids to the park the other day. Of course, like you said, because the weather's been incredible lately, really all over. But yeah, I'm sitting at the park. A buddy of mine comes in and brings his son, and we're all playing. And he looks over at me. He's a big gun guy. He's spent a lot of years kind of in the gun industry, and he looks over at me and he's like, "Wait, are those Leopold sunglasses?" And I was like, "Yeah, man."
Yeah, buddy. Yeah.
had to take them off and check them out, and he was super impressed. So I mean, they are wallet sunglasses. I mean, they are super legit, and I'm stoked to have them.
And they look dope, which you would think sometimes from a company that's so function that the fashion wouldn't be there, but they are. It is. Yeah, they're clean. They're really, really dope. I love them. And that's the other thing. We should put a poll. I was gonna say a banner. My mind kept on wanting to say banner. We should put a poll up on Insta and just say like, is it Leopold or Loophole? I think it's Loophole, but a lot of people pronounce it Leopold, like Lee. What do you say, Nate? Do you say Leopold?
That was my question. That was my question to you, like forever ago. Was it Leopold? Because that's honestly, I think that's the way I've said it, was Leopold. But
why don't we just ask them?
I guess we could just. I guess I could just text homeboy and ask him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, did you just get me in my sweatpants? Did you see me in my sweatpants just now?
No.
Nate?
No, I just saw the Kenai cup. Was all I saw. So.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. This is as real life as it gets, dude. You're trying to put your son down to sleep. Like this is just as real life as it gets.
I'm not wearing jeans.
Speaking of real life, so like Dan Miguel from Great Lakes Finesse has freaking triplets. So we'll talk about that tonight. But like, I mean, that's just real life stuff. Like they don't always
awesome
cooperate. Like it's just
kids.
And they are very, we're not just going to be like, go to sleep and let them cry it out and all that. Like, we're going to take care of them.
A couple episodes ago, we had a puking kid.
Yeah. At the end of the episode, Lola hopped up to like go inside because one of our daughters was puking. So it's real life. But anyway, Loophole makes dope sunglasses. Check them out. Also, all of our stuff is available on Waypoint TV, which is pretty rad because that's like sharing company with. I always say this name first because it was my childhood hero, but that's Al Linder, and Linder's Angling Edge is on Waypoint TV. Babe Winkleman, who always made me think that I could fish more than I could, but also has like the coolest name ever. I wonder if Dan Miguel's ever. Dan, you're on the back. Can you hear me? Have you ever seen Babe Winkleman? Do you know who that is? We can see him on the screen, but I don't know if he can. I don't know if he does, but it's like the coolest name ever, Babe Winkleman. But anywho, Waypoint TV, you can find our stuff there too. So let's ask the random question to each other. We want to do this every episode where we just ask a totally random question to the host, because I don't think that every person who listens or watches every episode. And so I want to kind of do like a get to know you thing, just real casual. I'm not
prepared. You tried to prepare.
We'll start with Nate. I'll ask you, what is, if you could fish any way that you want to win a tournament, think of that, and then go to the opposite. If there was a way to fish a tournament that, like, man, I don't want to do this, but it's going to win me a tournament, what would that technique be?
Oh man, that's a tough one, because I feel like here over the years I've like tried to get really well versed in probably far too many techniques.
Sure.
Yeah. So
like a swing head jig.
Right, like a swing head jig. Yeah, exactly.
Swing head jig.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it would probably have to be, and it's funny that we have this guest on, Dan, it'd probably have to be something finessey like drop shotting, because it's
you're actually good at it though.
I am, and I like it, but it's so stinking stressful. Like, as soon as you get hooked up, it's like, what am I gonna do to lose this?
That's actually true. There's some truth in that.
And that's it. Like, versus like, flipping or
when you set the hook on a jig fish, it's like he's in the boat.
I'm horsing him in. I'm boat flipping him 90% of the time. It's just
no doubt.
So I'd have to say something finesse. But like you said, over the last few years, I've gotten really kind of comfortable at doing it. But it's just man, it's just so stressful. Okay. It's just so stressful.
What about you, Lola? If there's one way that you wouldn't want to fish to win a tournament, like your least favorite way.
Do you know the answer?
Mine would be
no.
Oh, yours?
Yes.
Oh, I could tell you mine really fast. Mine's Carolina rigging, because like it catches fish unequivocally, but it's just
essentially anything dragging.
Yeah, well, I don't mind dragging like finessey stuff. That can actually be fun to me. I just feel more confident in it. But dragging a Carolina rig, I feel like I'm falling asleep. Yours?
That before.
I don't know.
Mosquito flying.
There's a bunch.
You.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Yeah,
heck?
I think I got bit on my upper butt cheek right as we started the show.
Oh, that's so cute.
It's not. But I feel like yours would be like anything. For Lola, yours would be anything like a square bill on like a tree or something.
I don't want to be like
you're gonna get hung
off
up.
Of rocks.
Yeah, you always feel like you're hung up, and you always feel whenever Lola hangs up, especially during a derby, she's like, "Oh, I'm hung up. I'm sorry. I'm snagged. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry." And I'm like, "Dude, that's part of the game. Like everybody gets hung up. Everybody gets snagged.
You gotta fix it. I don't.
But she's always like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry." So I think anything like that.
Then it takes time off of your fishing, because then you have to help me. That's why I'm apologizing.
Yeah, I just don't really care, because I feel like it's just part of it. And also, like, since Lola and I have started fishing together, whenever that was, she's always said to me, like, "You're so good at getting snags out," which I always took as sort of an insult. You're
good at it.
Because like it just means that I just mess up my cast or I just snag up too much.
I mean, it happens more often than I thought before I like really started fishing, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, bobber fishing, you don't really snag up too much, but
Are
other
you
stuff.
hating on bobber fishing?
No, I'm just saying, like, All right, so what do you guys got for a random question?
Oh gosh.
My random question was for Lola. I didn't know we were asking everybody, but I got
who cares? It doesn't matter. There's no rules. I just want people to get to know us.
Lola, what's the most recent thing that you bought yourself? You're a mom, you don't buy yourself stuff too often. What's the most recent thing you bought yourself?
Oh my gosh. Well, I got a I was gonna say something stupid like a dishwasher. No, that's not. I didn't. I am the dishwasher. No, we have a dishwasher. Anyway, I think I got a shirt.
There it is.
I bought it myself a shirt.
How exciting! Where'd you get it? Like clearance at Ross for like $2. Dude, we keep this whole show looking glamorous, dude. We look so
really
rich.
Cute. It's cute.
Yeah, we look really rich.
Black and white stripes.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. All right, you got a question?
Okay.
Last thing I bought myself, and I'm not saying this because Dan's on here.
Yeah.
The last thing I bought myself, I think, is some more Great Lakes Finesse, the drop minnow, because they are just
that or
stupid.
a Milky Way chocolate bar.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that too. But yeah. Anyway, what you got?
That might have been the oldest thing I've ever heard.
What's that? A Milky Way
chocolate bar.
Oh, chocolate bar.
As soon as I said Milky Way, I'm like, people are gonna know this. Why am I continuing?
Milky Way chocolate candy bar.
Yeah. Was it tasty?
Yeah.
With the caramel.
Caramel. Yeah, that's my favorite.
Okay.
I'm just pulling up the Great Lakes Finesse.
I feel like such a dummy. I thought I was
good.
prepared. I had one a second ago.
All right.
And then I lost it.
Okay. All right. So
I'll do it at the end.
Okay. Yeah. We'll come back to it. We'll circle back.
We'll circle back.
Before the end, we have to get to the start, which is this fella here. Dan Miguel is his name. He is a co-founder of what I would honestly say has got to be one of the fastest. And I don't know the metrics. I don't know the numbers on sales. I don't know any of that stuff. But as far as like, I have a pulse on the fishing community. And this is a brand that has been.
Sorry.
Mosquito. This is a brand that has just skyrocketed in popularity. And I think like, we'll talk to him about this, but I feel like with the style of stuff that they're making, they couldn't have, and they didn't pick, but they couldn't have picked a better time to get into the scene with everything going like forward facing sonar and moping, hover strolling, Demiki rigging, drop shotting. Like these are such prominent techniques and they've always been there, but now they're really blowing up. And this company, in my opinion, dude, and we're not sponsored by them. There's no reason for me to say this other than the fact that it's true. In my opinion, their baits are the best out there for this. And we'll talk about this with Dan because they all sit just the way they're supposed to in the water on a drop shot rig. They're not like weirdly floating where they're so buoyant that it looks goofy. They're not like sinking. They just do this horizontal presentation, and the drop minnow specifically has the perfect little extra bulb kind of towards the tail. So like, I mean, you could have like, I feel like your heartbeat could make this thing twitch if you're holding the rod in your hand. It is just so sensitive and looks so good.
Oh, whisper. Yeah. I
mean, really, truly, you could be like jiggle or twitch or whatever, and it has this little move, and I just don't. Yeah. I mean, you it's our boat, Nate. You've seen the legend. Yeah. I don't know that I have more tackle than anybody, but maybe. And this is a unique thing, and so to have a guy like this on at this time, right before the Classic, we are so excited to bring in and talk about just whatever. We're so excited to bring in Dan Miguel to the podcast. So welcome, man. Thank you for being here.
Hey,
thanks. I feel flattered. Those are some words you guys just gave us. So,
man,
I'm super appreciative. I think it's Loophole, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
that's your
I'm with you on that.
That's your opinion on it.
That's my opinion.
I feel like it's Loophole too. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me know. I'm a hunter as well. So.
Right on.
Cool.
Here. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you for doing it, man. I know you said when we were having our little pregame chat that you've been on quite a few of these lately. And so we don't, we don't pretend to not be human. We know that you must be tired. And so thank you for taking the time out to do it. It really does mean a lot to us.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, we greatly appreciate it.
No, absolutely. As tired as I am, I'm running on adrenaline right now. This has been probably the most exciting week at Great Lakes Finesse ever.
Come on.
Yeah, it's been unbelievable. So, I've been probably getting like 2 to 3 hours of sleep a night. And even when I lay down, I'm thinking about the next thing. So,
yeah.
Oh my God.
So I don't know if awesome. I assume you're not in this for the money, Dan, but I remember one time reading a report that said something like the average billionaire sleeps like 3.5 hours a night. And so maybe you're just like kind of running into where you guys are going with this whole thing, perhaps.
Right on track.
On the way.
the trajectory is that way maybe, but I still don't know. I mean, the market's really big. Let's not lie, right? The market is massive. It's bigger than like hockey and golf combined. So $1 billion is a lofty goal, but we'll try.
Okay. I like it.
Yeah, your sleep is lining up with it. So let's if anybody's just listening to this and not watching the podcast, you've probably already caught the rad Canadian vibe accent that Dan has. So Dan, tell us, where are you? Where are you coming to us from?
So I'm coming from a small town called Peterborough that's just outside of Toronto, Ontario, Canada. So really for me, smallmouth are really prevalent around here, but one of my home bodies of water is St. Lawrence River, Lake Ontario. So if anyone follows the Elite Series, like the guys who are fishing that event are literally fishing my spots and stuff. Not my spots, but
right.
Yeah.
Like I'm watching the shorelines. I'm like, I know exactly where they are. So like that's kind of like,
get that off alive right now.
Yeah. Well, that live map is a killer. It just like has exposed so much, but I mean that's for another day to talk about. But I know we talked about the joking around about like the money and stuff, and I really don't even really think about it. For us, it's always been about just trying to bring this style of fishing to as many people as possible, and I'm just really excited that the brand is kind of still on its way to reaching its potential, because I do believe that this is an untapped technique that we're making the right baits for. So I'm sure we'll dig into all that, but it's just really exciting to bring this whole new style of fishing to the market.
Yeah, heck yeah, dude. So before we do all that, and I absolutely want to dive in as deep as you want to go, Dan, with Great Lakes Finesse, and even specifically like, where did you come up with this style? Why the name? Why the logo? Why the everything? I love that kind of origin story type stuff. I think most people do. But if you're okay with it, man, I'd like to know you as a human being. What's your story? How did you get into fishing? Why are you obsessed with smallmouth fishing specifically? Like, where did it all start?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm so thankful that my parents gave me the opportunity to go fishing. They took me as early as like 2 years old. And I was just obsessed with it at a really young age. Like, my friends started getting into other sports and stuff, and all I wanted to do was fish. And so eventually I always believe that if you do what you love to do, you're going to get really good at it. And I do feel like I'm pretty good at it. And when I was about 16 years old, I got sponsored by Rapala.
Wow.
And so I was like the youngest guy. Just for context, I'm almost 40. So it's been a long time that I've been doing this now. It's crazy. I still feel really young, but anyway, it literally only hit me like this year how long I've been doing this and how many years I've been fishing tournaments. I still feel like the young guy out there. So it's really strange.
I love that though.
Yeah, for sure.
I love that so much.
So I worked for them for 3 years and learned a lot about I sponsored by them, and then they hired me into the corporate office. So I actually worked in that company for 3 years, and then I started a company called National Pro Staff with another partner. And that, I don't know if you ever heard of NPS, but it was
where you'd like get people sponsors and stuff.
Yeah, so that was a company that I started and ran. I mean, that was it was an amazing experience. We did a lot of really great things. We also did a lot of wrong things. Like we made a lot of mistakes. And
that's honest.
So like, I always believe that like you don't learn unless you make mistakes. And one of the lessons learned in that business was we focused a lot on growth and not so much on the quality of the product. And, that's something that I really believe in now more than anything. And so while we worked with hundreds of brands, and I got to know pretty much all the marketing managers in the industry and just doing that business. And then I had the opportunity, let me backtrack. I fished tournaments competitively, and that's what I love to do. Like out of everything, that's my favorite thing to do. And like competed regionally here up against. So just to give you guys a sense of the level of competition where I am, both Johnson brothers, one lives in my town. The other one lives like 15 minutes away. Cooper Gallant, who's now on the Elite Series, he lives, a friend of mine, he lives like 25 minutes from me. Evan Kung was in Pickering, which is like 40 minutes from me. So all of and he's leading the opens.
He's leading the opens, right? Yeah. Yep.
Leading in the points. So all of these guys compete regionally here. So they're the ones that took the leap and went for the to go to the Elite Series. But there are probably another 15 to 20 guys that are probably as good as could be on the Elite Series in this little area. So what that's done is it's essentially elevated everyone to be so competitive, trying to find an edge and everything. So anyway, there was a time where I thought, okay, I'd like to fish the opens. And then I had triplets. And so that was about 3 years ago.
Jeez.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, that was a moment where I went, let's be real. There was a time where you only had to fish 3, the Northern.
Right.
And now when they went to 9, it's like completely out of the question. Like that is just not a thing that, I would consider doing. So,
it's
for
not
me,
very attainable with a kid, let alone triplets.
3 of the exact same age. Yeah.
Especially living where I live. Right. And, you see guys like Gus, even the Johnson brothers, like it takes its toll traveling down south. So, that was kind of, for me, locally here, like my first win was against the Johnson brothers. They were second place. I won. I've won team of the year here, won like a bunch of stuff. So in terms of like the competition side, I felt like there wasn't really anything left regionally here for me to achieve. And it got to the point where I was like, okay, what's the next step? And then we also still wanted to compete, but I felt like we had discovered this style of fishing, and really just discovering this light line, super micro baits style of fishing to trigger big bites and have an edge over everybody else. And I felt like, okay, like we could make some baits for ourselves. I actually partnered with someone that I'd met in the industry to get the thing off the ground. And then basically just started making the baits like for ourselves. And then a few local retailers had picked it up, and we didn't really expect much from it. We didn't even understand I can get into like the actual style of fishing, but I'm trying to like kind of just give you the story of like light line micro baits. A handful of retailers picked it up. We started an Instagram page, no marketing. And I was just like, let's develop baits that have like all of our tournament secrets. And we didn't even think that anyone would get what we were doing at all. Like we thought this was going to be a very challenging business, because I thought that it was going to require a lot of money to educate people on how to use these tiny little baits for big fish. But it was the complete opposite. The first few retailers got them. We started an Instagram page. I think in the first 100 followers, an Elite Series angler followed. And then
so exciting.
Seriously.
In like the 200, there was like another one. And the retailers started selling, like we started posting pictures. People kind of knew me locally, so they were, trying this stuff out. And then all of a sudden the retailers were selling out, and not to the masses. It was like a handful of hardcore tournament guys were going in and buying all of it.
Oh, like the guys who knew they were. Yeah.
So the salespeople are all of a sudden like bells are ringing, like what's going on here? And it didn't take long for the secret to kind of just get out. And fast forward, not even one, like by the time we got to the spring of that, so we launched the brand in October. By the time we got to March, the demand had just gone through the roof, and we were like,
so
basically
awesome.
We had to cut off new retailers because we just could not supply enough product, and we hadn't spent a dollar. So that was like, dude. It was just absolutely crazy. Like we didn't do a show. We didn't do like anything. Like we didn't have a booth. Like people go to these trade shows, and like we didn't do literally an Instagram page and the quality of the baits, and then just the underground, the best of the best. And then all of a sudden we started seeing orders coming in from elite guys, and I was getting messages from like literally I've had messages from like classic winners, angler of the years. They're like, hey, I need to get this. Where do I find it? They're not even sponsored by it. Like it was like, holy smokes, there's something here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's really like, I mean, I'm really tired. I've been going hard all week.
Yeah.
And so hopefully that all like kind of made sense.
No, that was awesome, man.
But yeah, I mean, it's just been like every time someone asks, like, did you ever think this would happen? And it's like, absolutely not. I did not ever believe that.
Yeah.
Like, I always felt like, okay, we'll put out some baits, we'll sell some. If it's a side hustle, cool. I'll probably have I'll be doing something else.
Yeah.
And it's just completely absorbed all of my time very quickly. And it just became, you know, how do we figure out how to supply enough to hit to meet the demand? And I mean, we've made some adjustments over the last year and stuff that, anyway, it's just been nuts. It's been a freight train up to a complete rocket ship, and all we're trying to do is find enough fuel to, you know, to keep it going on the trajectory it's going.
Dude,
what year was it that stuff really started to take off for you? Like, because it hasn't been that long, right? So
yeah, no, so believe it or not, this is only our second full season.
Oh my gosh!
I thought so.
Last year was our first spring, and then this spring now will be our third. So it was like,
wow,
October into spring, we got our first handful of dealers. They started selling it in like March and stuff. And then, wait a minute.
Of like 2021?
Yeah, it would have been 2021. So
wow.
So
almost like COVID year into like a year.
Yeah, so it was so crazy. We started in October.
COVID year, so dumb.
And that was when we like launched the brand in October. Spring, we had dealers like crazy. And then wait a minute. Okay, no, we did one full season, went to ICAST. By ICAST, Pradco had reached out to us and wanted to figure out how to help us meet the demand. I mean, essentially that's what it was, because we could not, even if we hired more people as fast as we were hiring people, we just absolutely could not. And people were getting really frustrated and they couldn't get our stuff. And we were cutting off retailers and saying, look, we can't bring on anymore because we couldn't even service the retailers we had. Like, it was so crazy. Like, we would send a massive order to a retailer, like a DNR Sports or something, and like they would get it, and then a day later they're like, we need another order but double it. And we're
oh my gosh,
what is going on now?
What a great problem, but also like
stressful as heck. Yeah, seriously, dude.
Like, super stressful. We're trying to figure out how to scale this thing as fast as we can, but also quality is so important. So as you scale and bring on people, I find the faster you move, the more things deteriorate, right?
So you get missed or whatever.
You get missed, the attention to detail might not be there. And that became our biggest challenge, was how do we meet this demand, but also maintain the quality? And that was something that I always said, was no matter what, the quality has to be the best. And I don't mean the best compared to other people. It needs to be the best that we can possibly do.
Yep. I love that.
Me too.
Yeah. So, anyway, so if you want me to keep going down this journey and tell you what happened next, I'm sure people, might want to know, but
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I was still running the NPS business on the side with, as much time as I had. And then I was at ICAST, and I was actually meeting with Pradco to talk about NPS. And I was actually not really even telling anyone that I was like running this business but they kind of knew, because the marketing manager was friends with me, and he was like, hey, what's going on with this Great Lakes Finesse? And I spilled the beans a bit. And then that was when the conversation started with them about how could we work together to, see this brand reach its full potential. And, it took about 9 months, but we figured out a way that we were able to give the brand what it needed and also maintain its identity and keep the quality at the high level that it is. And in fact, not only is the quality remained, I believe it's gotten a lot better. I think it's probably 25% better, in fact. And we're doing things now with their resources that we would never have been able to achieve on our own. So it's been an absolute whirlwind. And then this week has shown me that even with the power of, one of the biggest fishing companies in the industry behind you and helping you, we still can't keep up with demand. It's absolutely nuts. Like, it's just insane. Like, if you go to our website, we just launched these products like a handful of days ago, and they're all sold out. Like, it's nothing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like, I'm
Dude, that's
so happy
dope.
for
So,
you.
so honestly, so like, I'm not a part of your company. I just met you 5 seconds ago. I'm so fired up just hearing this story right now.
Right?
Like, fire me up, dude.
Yeah,
This is
absolutely.
rad, man. Congrats. And you seem like such a normal human being. Like, it's really refreshing. It's like, I almost just said like 3 times too, because I'm ignorant. I almost said, yeah, man, that's the American dream. But like, obviously it's not the North American dream, I guess you could say. But so I do want to get really specific on like new products and whatever, because my opinion, and again, I don't know what I don't know. In my opinion, of the Juvie craw and the Hellgrammite, I feel like I'd catch more fish on the Hellgrammite, but I think the craw is way cooler. So we can get into all that stuff.
But wait, I'm sorry.
No,
can
please.
I ask about his family?
Well, that's what I was going to say. I want to backtrack before we do all that. I want to get I want to get Dan Miguel specific. Yeah, please ask. Fire away. Yeah, is that okay, Dan?
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, cool.
Okay, tell us about your family.
There it is. Yeah.
Yeah. I've got an amazing wife. Not all superheroes wear capes.
Yeah, heck yeah.
But she's incredible.
What's her name?
Steph.
Shout out, Steph.
Pwah, pwah, pwah.
Yeah, heck yeah, dude.
Shout out.
None of this would be possible without her support. So
no doubt.
Yeah, really awesome that she's she's a hero to me. Like, it's just amazing support system and there for me when I need her help. And I mean, she's always been an incredible support system. So and then she also, birthed triplets. So I got 3.
Her.
Yeah, so that was something else. I'll tell you.
Yeah.
That was crazy. And she did that like a champ, and they're all super healthy. I got 3 boys, and
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's so cute.
Yeah, it's nuts. You should see our house. It's just just crazy.
Yeah.
We understand.
I don't. This is gonna sound, well, maybe it's not ignorant, but are they identical? Are they? How are their personalities? What are their names?
Yeah, I want to know that too.
Yeah. They're not identical. I got their one name is Nash, Beck, and Tate.
Oh my gosh,
so cute.
So cute.
Yeah. Super short. I mean,
love it.
Love the names, and they're also easy to manage. For filling out forms, it's not like long names or anything. They're awesome. They're all completely. They have different personalities. One of them is like haywire. We call him Pinball.
Oh my gosh.
He bounces all over the place and just can't stop. Like, runs around the house looking backwards. And then I got my one son Beck. I mean, he's super serious and but also like really funny and just like really like particular about his stuff. And then I got another one who's just like he's our biggest one, but he's like the gentle giant. Like, like the other ones almost bully him, and he's just so kind. But he could easily like fight back, and they would not mess with him. But
oh my god,
he's got a heart of gold. So yeah, I mean that's the fam, and that's who we roll with. And part of the decision to partner with Pradco, if people don't know who Pradco is, they own like Booyah, Yum,
they own everything. Yeah,
a lot of brands. Generally not in the premium space. Like, we're really in the premium tackle category compared to what they normally do. Like, they're more of like price point for people who are entry level. Maybe not so much like Booyah, War Eagle, but a lot of their sub brands are like stuff you'd find like Walmart, and to just introduce people into fishing. But for me, when the opportunity came about to partner with them, it was also about one day hoping that the brand would get to a point where it was big and my kids could be proud of what their dad did.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna cry.
Yeah, and hopefully like inspire them to try to be entrepreneurial and do something as well that brings them joy. And
I love that.
So so that was kind of like a lot of the thought process in my mind about like what made sense for me. And not only that, like when I ran National Pro Staff, like there's a lot of really great people in the fishing industry, but there's also a lot of shady people. And
of course,
what I learned was the people at Pradco were the most genuine, kind-hearted, would never do anyone wrong people. And I just they were amazing to work with. Like, even when I started working with them, even just on like a marketing partnership, like the director of marketing was like, they flew me out there. he took me fishing, met his family, like
that's cool.
just developed this like they really believe in the personal side, like people working with people as opposed to business. So it's like people first for them, and that really resonates with me. And I felt like they were the type of people that align with who I am and what I want to do with the company and with the brand. So it really there's a lot of things that were going on. It felt like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of different directions we could have gone. Like we had multiple people reach out. We had people like we had NBA player, like had an NBA player, a football player reach out offering to invest money. Like there was a lot of like things that a lot of directions we could have gone in, but this one just felt like the right one for the brand, my family, just everything, and just the identity of the brand I wanted to create.
Yeah, dude, I have so many freaking questions. I just, golly, everything from family stuff to.
Well, how big were the babies when they were born?
That's not what I was going to ask, but that is a good one, honestly.
Well, the 3 of them were like, I think it was just under 13 pounds, because I always thought of them as like big smallmouth.
A bag?
Like 3 and like upper 3s to 4 pounders. That was how I always thought about it when she was like, oh yeah, like they're this big, and when they came out, I'm like, wow, it's not a bad bag for 3 fish.
Oh,
yeah, if it was like a Tuesday night jackpot, 3 fish turning.
Co-angler.
No, we're not talking about no we're talking about a sack of small jaws. Like a sack of 3 brown fish. Yeah, for sure. So Pradco, let me ask about that. When the offers essentially started rolling in, because I always feel, and I have to sort of theorize because I don't know what it's like, but I've always wondered for people whose brand or their baby that they've created, not the triplets baby, but like your business, if that thing blows up and you start having offers come in, for some people, that's like their whole deal. Like they build up a company so they can kind of hand it off, and then they start over and they build up a company. But with you're talking about taking lures that you were using, styles you were using, techniques you were using, like some of the stuff that Great Lakes Finesse does that is so freaking unique, like legitimately, like the matte finish on stuff, the way that it sits in the water that I was referring to earlier. This was like your passion. So when Pradco comes to you, I mean, were you torn about even entertaining offers there? Or was it like, dude, I can't keep up, I have to do something? Or, I mean, what was that like in your head before you went with it?
Yeah. So to be clear, part of the merger was included me staying on with the brand for as long as I absolutely want. Like they not only did they offer that, but they insisted that was the only way that this was going to work.
Oh, that's cool.
So
for me, that's great.
Yeah, so for me, again, it wasn't like money's important, but I don't think that, like, for me personally, like once I get to a certain amount of money where my family is comfortable, and like I don't need Lambos, and
right.
That's just not my style. Like I'm happy. Like my family is doing well. I got great kids, and as long as we can, live like reasonably comfortable, I'm very happy. And so for me, again, this was about the brand and seeing it reach its potential, and making sure that like the Pradco opportunity allowed me to have the resources to do what I really wanted to do. And like you're going to see some stuff come out from us over the next 2 to 3 years, like that we're already working on, that there's absolutely no way financially or, skillful, like with the skills and like our abilities that we could have ever done.
Okay,
so
sure.
Having that kind of backing to, like, basically it's like someone being like, hey, you like fishing tournaments? I don't care if you win again, but here's unlimited money to just go fish as many tournaments as you want. That's kind of how I feel about this. Like, going like, this is free reign, go do your thing, build this brand, build the identity, and we're going to support you every step of the way, and you have full control. That is really the scenario that I'm in right now, which is,
and you're like, okay. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's really exciting, and the people I work with have complete trust in me, and the guys that work there, they're in love with the brand too, as much as I am. So as much as it's my brand, it's kind of funny because like everyone now in the office there, they walk around with like GLF apparel, like Great Lakes Finesse hats and shirts, and like
That's dope.
they're like you fishing the stuff, sending me pictures, and they're just like loving it as much as I am. So I think it's kind of like actually brought a big breath of fresh air to the company too, to have like a brand that's so cool and doing as well as it's doing, and just being involved in the whole process, because I'm very I'm such a team player in a sense that like I want everyone to feel involved and feel like they're contributing, because I really do value their contributions. And you know, it's just all awesome stuff.
Wow, gosh, dog it.
Heck yeah. Yeah, that's so cool. Speaking of apparel though, I'm probably gonna need one of those green bottom hats. So man, that thing's dope.
Yeah, no, I like this hat.
Yeah.
Hey, so quick marketing question I have for you. Oh, sorry, Nate, go. Sorry, our internet's kind of acting glitchy, so like we're running over each other. I apologize, sir.
No, you go ahead.
All right, so Dan, quick marketing-y, dorky type question I have for you. You very much feel like the type of feller that the why matters on lures to branding to whatever. So let me just guess, and I have no earthly idea. So if I'm totally wrong, you can just laugh at me and be like, no. But number one, I think this has nothing to do with what I'm about to ask. I think Canadians say smallmouth way cooler than we do.
Okay.
So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Right.
Number two, is your logo, the wave, on there? Is it because your company, Great Lakes Finesse, is very targeted towards, and obviously you can use it for whatever swims. I'm certain it would catch spots to wipers to anything else, but with it being targeted specifically to smallmouth, I feel like smallmouth very often get riled up in like the worst conditions, whether that's prefrontal storm stuff, big rollers coming in, waves coming over the bow of the boat, and you're trying to look at your electronics, drop shotting in 40 feet of water. Is the wave of the logo a part of that, what I just said, or am I on some sort of hallucinogenic drug?
Yeah, I kind of wish it was.
Dang it.
Just say it is. He creates logos, so that's what his thought process would have been.
Dang
I think so very similar thought process. So when I was thinking about the branding and the logo, I was trying to resonate with how people feel about the Great Lakes and how I feel, and I know how other anglers feel about going and fishing on Lake Ontario, Lake Erie. And I think the first thing that everyone thinks about when they're thinking about going fishing there is, can I even get out there? Because the waves get so big. And that's something that resonates with anyone who fishes the Great Lakes, is one day you're going to get caught in some big waves. And like I'm talking big ones. And
that's freaky.
So that was kind of the inspiration for it. Like just the thought of like, only the most hardcore guys are going to go out there in those giant waves to go catch those smallmouth. Like you see on the Elite Series, like the Johnsons, they'll go out to Lake Ontario when everyone else is cutting back. Running out. And like the guys who are in it, like that was kind of like the brand to me, was that identity of that guy who's going to go because he wants to win and he wants to be the best. So that was like, I mean, that was what I had. I was also
that's really good.
So that was my thought process. I mean, and then the wave. But even the brand itself, Great Lakes Finesse, it's funny because, you know, I went through this exercise with my co-founder, and he's a really smart guy. His name was Braden Kemp, like really smart guy, especially like on business stuff, like really passionate about fishing, but really good at business. And, you know, we're talking about branding and stuff. And he was like, you know, what, like, we got to call this thing something. And I'm thinking like, and in my mind, I'm like, it's really got to speak like Great Lakes, but finesse. And he was just like, that's the name. And I'm like, no way. Like
that's too easy.
Exactly. I was like, no. He's like, no, dude, you just said it. And like, that has to be the name. And I was like, I wrote down like, okay, we'll think about it. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, yeah, that is the name, because that is what we're all about, is like Great Lakes, big smallmouth, but finesse.
Did you have any other ideas, or was that like the first one?
I can't really remember. I'd have to go find a piece of paper somewhere.
That'd be so cool.
I mean, one thing about me is once I make a decision, I move on, right? Like, it's just like, I don't even think back at all. I'm always what's the next thing that we're going to do? Yeah.
Yeah, that's dope. Yeah, we were going to call this podcast the Figure Out Fishing Podcast, and then I was like, that's the worst, most vanilla, generic podcast name ever. You know, it's like, yeah, it's hard though when it's something you actually care about. Like,
you can't have vanilla when you have a Puerto Rican and a black man on a podcast.
Well, right, yeah,
white boy.
and a white guy who thought he was black till he was like 10. So, also, so we did a podcast, Dan, a few weeks ago with a homie down from Texas. Shout out, Stinky Pants Fishing. Shout out. He was coming up with all these really cool products and kind of the same deal as you. Maybe not to like the blow upness where you're at, but like, you know, really took off. And he was coming up with the brand while he was having his first child and always changing his diapers. And so just as a, not to say as a joke, but just sort of like Stinky Pants.
It's part of my life right now. It's what we're calling it.
But that uniqueness. So with Great Lakes Finesse, were you ever worried about calling it finesse? Like maybe we want to make big crankbaits one day, or were you like, no, this is what we do and this is what we're going to stick with?
I mean, I was never worried about it because I never thought it would be big.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
You know what I mean? Like it really was intended to just be, let's make baits for us. And, you know, if people get it, you know, we'll supply them. And, we just wanted to win tournaments. Like we wanted to fish tournaments, win them and make cool baits for ourselves. I just thought, I mean, I was realistic. Like when we ran National Pro Staff, we had a sales force, like we had Salesforce and stuff. And like, we estimated there had to be, like at least 4,000 brands, like making fishing tackle, whether it was big brands all the way down to people in their garage. Like we had well over, like we probably like 3,000 in our database. So like the thought of, okay, how are we going to actually, you know, become something that's relevant in that sea of noise, right? It's, you know, it's just, it is a sea of noise. So, it never really crossed my mind. I felt like, okay, the market's big enough. If it ever did get big, you know, the market size up here, especially for smallmouth, is big. It's growing. So I was comfortable with it. I didn't really feel, you know, that was a concern. So yeah, not really.
Right on. I was wondering if you thought maybe like, oh man, you know, it's going to pigeonhole us, but like it doesn't. It also completely sets you apart. You know, that what's that called? DVP in business, differentiating value proposition. Like do something, do it just enough different. You know, like I always joke about this with people. But like think of like successful rappers like Jay-Z, or I don't know, just people who they're not really talking about stuff that's that much different. They're just doing it in a different enough way that it makes them stand out from everybody else. And so I think Great Lakes Finesse, like there's a lot, like you even said Yum, like Yum has like that, what's that one drop shot bait they make? I can't remember, but it's a dope little bait. It's a finesse bait, but they're not just finesse. So you're doing stuff that other people are doing just enough different and just better, I think, that it makes you pop.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the other thing too, right? Like we felt like even if it did get big, we're, you know, the Great Lakes is really what people think as the authority for big smallmouth. So if it went down south and people were fishing for smallmouth, but we were really focused on the smallmouth category, and we really do maintain that identity today because that's really what these baits were initially designed for. But that said, I mean, people are all over the country are smashing like spots, and Luke Palmer just got a 6th place on Toledo Bend, landing 7s and 8s and 9s on a drop minnow. Like, the reality is like every fish in the lake is going to eat a little bait, no matter where you go. So, yeah.
Has that success like nationally like catapulted your thought process into like new bait development, or like what else can we bring on that would be great in this area or that area, you know, after seeing stuff like that?
I mean, obviously, you know, like one thing in business that I've learned is that you need to remain focused on what you do best. It's easy to start following the suggestions and stuff. You know, obviously I think about that, but I've also got so much left to do in the northern smallmouth category and that super finesse stuff. Like I've got 4 years of products that we're going to develop that are still designed for this area. So I think that's going to keep me focused for now. But I mean, certainly it's possible, but at the same time, I think what makes the brand great is our laser focus on what we do best. And when you think about companies that are successful, that's what they do. They don't try to start things just start to get wishy-washy and quality goes down when you start playing outside of your area of expertise. And I feel like this is where we, really are the authority on this style of fishing in these small micro baits. So that's where we're going to play in for now.
Well, yeah, you're in a really good time to be the authority in that, right? Like you're seeing so many forward-facing tournaments with, again, moping. Do you call it moping as well, like Gussie does?
I mean, he really brought that name. I mean, I've got another name for it called Cindy rigging, and I think everyone's got a name for it. Anglers discover these techniques. I think they're the only ones doing it, but then because we keep everything so secret, we don't talk about it, right? So he's calling it moping. We're calling it Cindy rigging. I've got a funny story of why it's called Cindy rigging.
I was wondering.
It's pretty funny. And it actually is really funny because now, if you know why it's called Cindy rigging, the fact that Bassmaster and Bass University and Wider Fisher have written articles and done videos on the Cindy rig,
mentioning
hilarious. I'll just tell you how it happened. So here I'll show you what it is real quick. Where are you? Okay, it is. I had one here earlier. I was playing with it. Okay, so it's our drop minnow on a stealth ball head. Oh, here it is, right here. Okay, so stealth ball head. So this is our stealth ball head, and this is our drop minnow. So this is the Cindy rig, and you can use different sizes. And we actually have a new head that we just released called the Sneaky Swim Bait head, which can pair with that really well, and that comes in darker colors as well. But so I don't know if you ever heard of Lake Simcoe, but it's a huge lake here. It's very popular, and some of the biggest the Canadian record came out of Lake Simcoe for smallmouth bass. So, but it's also very pressured, and everyone knows where these big smallmouth are. It fishes very small, and my buddy Steve, who was actually on the Rapala Pro staff, he's retired now, but we became friends when we were on the Rapala Pro staff, and we're still friends to this day. Well, he went fishing out there with his wife Cindy, and so they were dragging tubes, and he was dragging a tube, and she doesn't know how to fish very well, so she was just at the back of the boat, and he's so focused on dragging that she's just casting and reeling her tube in.
Go girl.
Out there, not even caring if she catches a fish, and she was slaughtering them, crushing 10-1. So he called me, and he's like, dude, you'll never believe what happened. And basically he was just bombing it out, and she was bombing it and reeling it in, and anyway, so it got oh my gosh, I would never have thought to do that. Light bulbs are going off. I'm thinking, we need to test this with different baits, and anyway, so we refined the technique down to a minnow on a ball head, and we've been doing it for years, and we've been calling it the Cindy rig, knowing that no one would ever understand what we're saying, so we could speak freely about it. And
that's amazing.
That was why it was called the Cindy rig. And then now, so when Pradco merged with Great Lakes Finesse, I met with Stetson Blaylock, Jason Christie, and Luke Palmer, and I introduced the Cindy rig. I told them about it, and I said, look, don't sleep on this. And in their defense, by the time, because this happened last spring, we merged, and by the time we actually had enough product in, because we were way behind on delivering product to dealers. By the time Stetson and Christie had gotten the product, they just didn't have time to be familiar with it and really understand it. And they had success in the north, on the northern swing in the past. So for them, it was I need more time. I'm not going to start trying to fiddle with this stuff on the Elite Series in a practice. Well, Luke Palmer, on the other hand, had never made a cut. And when I started talking about smallmouth and everything, and basically having a conversation like this with them about all the baits, how to use them, blah, 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 just giving them a full course on every bait and when you use them, he was all in. And the first time he was fishing St. Clair, and he nearly won the event. On day 2, he remembered the Cindy rig and me telling him, because he was fishing around, there was a flotilla where he was fishing. Half the field were fishing his zone. And the light slowed down, and he remembered that conversation about the drop minnow and the ball head, and he put it on and immediately started catching fish.
I love it.
So way to go, Cindy.
Yeah. So he was leading it. He texted me after that day. He was like, dude, thanks. I was like, wow, man, you crushed. He's like, thank you for the drop minnow and that ball head. Yeah. And, So yeah, we're joking around. And anyway, so he was leading going into the final day, and Cifuentes ended up winning.
Yeah.
But really, in my mind, the only reason why he won is because he was making a long run to the Canadian side, and he had no one around him. So he had all those fish to himself, and Luke had the entire field around him for like most of the tournament. So he just ran out of fish. And but for him, I mean, that was a huge success. He'd never made a cut in a smallmouth event. He proceeds to go to St. Clair, or sorry, to Champlain.
Yep.
And he got 13th there with the drop minnow. Fully bought in on the Cindy rig, and that's what got him.
That's awesome.
And keep in mind, this is a guy who really has struggled with smallmouth, and all of a sudden he takes one bait, one style of fishing, and now he's like in the top 20 making cuts. So then he goes to St. Lawrence, he got 11th. So in those 3 events, like, he had more success than he ever dreamed he would have fishing for smallmouth with Great Lakes Finesse. It was like he was talking about it. Initially he was like, dude, we can't tell anybody about the Cindy rig. Like, he was like,
right.
Back and forth. Because I made a post about it. He's like, oh man, I really didn't want to tell anyone. I'm like, but he understood that would really help the brand. And then fast forward to this season, first event of the year, he goes to Toledo Bend. The Cindy rig is part of his, like, it ended up catching one of his key fish that he needed. And that was, again, so the first 4 events after the merger with Great Lakes Finesse, he had like basically no worse than like 13th place.
Golly, that's against the absolute best sticks on planet Earth.
Yeah, so it was awesome. Sweet. And then the guys at Omnia, like they did a podcast with BTL. So the buyers at Omnia Fishing, they're an online tackle store. If anyone doesn't know who they are,
yeah, they're right like next door to us. I mean, not literally, but they're in Minnesota. They're real close.
Oh, okay, cool. So so they were on BTL right before the St. Lawrence, and the guys on BTL were like, if you had to pick a bait, like, what's going to win the event? And they were like, well, probably some minnow style. And then the buyer was like, but if I'm being true, I think GLF is going to pull it off. Wow. And they're like, oh, why do you think that? He's like, well, because like more than half of the field bought all of our inventory. So yeah. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that was really cool to hear that. And, when you start seeing that, I mean, you just kind of feel like, wow, we did something pretty cool.
Yeah, man.
Can I ask a possibly ignorant question? Okay, we call these baits.
You may.
We don't call them lures. What do we call lures? Because I thought they could be used.
It could be a lure. They're lures, sure.
Yeah, but I think they're both.
Do we prefer bait because they're more wormy?
I don't know.
I
don't know if I have an answer for that. I think I use both. I use both.
When I think of a lure, I think of like a square bill or something like that. But I would say that as like a bait too, though. Yeah.
No, I think I don't know. Do you interchange them, Nate? Do you interchange them, Dan? I feel like I mix them up back and forth.
Yeah, probably mix them up back and forth. But if I had to say personally, I'd say a lure already has hooks on it, and a bait
that's what I was thinking.
Put on a hook, but that, I don't know. It's just my thought process. Probably
that's what I was thinking.
That makes sense at all, but
thanks, guys.
I mean, I guess I say baits because, like, when you see like top baits, Bass Pro top baits or whatever, like top 10 baits. I mean, I just kind of follow the crowd on that one.
Yeah, because I'll say something. No, I'll say something like, "Oh yeah, the other day," because like I think my favorite fish to catch and favorite way to do it is smallmouth on spinner baits, and it's not a spinner lure. You know what I'm saying? It's a spinner bait. And I was telling somebody the other day about the Gancraft or Goncraft spinner bait. It's like, oh yeah, it's a great bait for smallmouth because the blades are bigger and it flashes real hard and they just beat the day. And I never once said, oh, it's my favorite lure. I said it's my favorite bait.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was a good question though. I mean, it's a semantic sort of silly question, but hey, Dan, so do you remember, you said that you were at Rapala a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
I turned 75 next week, so I've been into fishing for a super long time. Do you remember, or maybe this is before your time, I don't know, but I mean, this was a while ago. I remember this when I was living in Georgia. Rapala had this whole marketing campaign of, I think it was back when they were rolling out like the ultralight minnow and like the really small, hard plastic lures. And they had this whole marketing campaign of like the bully always picks on the little guy or something like that. And I remember like way back then, it was sort of a light bulb moment for me to use really, really small baits for bass. And I would catch some pretty big bass on these really little baits that dudes would laugh at me for using. Do you remember that at all? Were you around Rapala when that happened?
I don't remember that campaign, but that does sound like a Rapala style campaign. Like they've been clever in the past.
Yeah.
Campaigns. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I was just wondering if perhaps that might have been like an accidental, spark for some of your thought process at all.
No, absolutely not. Actually, I was talking about Steve and Cindy earlier. Like Steve Delia, he's like a local legend around here. He was fishing tournaments 20 to 30 years prior to me. So he was actually kind of the pioneer of this light line finesse stuff on
cool.
Tipco. So he introduced me to a fairly rudimentary version of that. And I saw firsthand in the boat with him when he showed me. He's like, "You'll never believe what I'm doing." And I went out with him and he showed me like we're like sight fishing these fish and we're throwing like little tiny crappie baits and whatever. But we were losing a lot of fish because the components just weren't they weren't meant for 6 and 7 pound fish, right? They're meant for panfish. So like bad hooks that would bend out and the plastics would tear. And but that was really like the first intro, and that was probably like 10 to 12 years ago.
Wow.
And I just like really started dialing this stuff in. We started making baits for ourselves because we couldn't find anything on the market that fit this style of fishing. So like these little hooks, like I mean that seems like a tiny little hook, but that's built on a Gamakatsu 604 hook. And there's a lot of details in there. Like we keep the eye covered in the manufacturing so that you can get away with really light line. You don't have to break or scratch the inside of the eye. It's also powder coated, so it won't chip, so you can bang it off rocks. There's nothing worse than like having a chipped head and then they shy away from it because it just looks bad.
That's so normal.
Super thought through. I like that.
Yeah, like all of the stuff is really thought through and designed. So we spent the last, probably like it could even be as much as 15 years really dialing in this micro finesse stuff and keeping it really secret. Like no one knew about it at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of crazy it feels really awkward for me. I'll be honest, to go from being a hardcore tournament angler that wants to win and keep every little secret to going, here's every secret I've got.
Here's the secret.
Yeah, here's the juice.
Every bait. I mean, we should get into the Juvicron. I'll give you an example of this. Like,
that thing is so sick.
Like the matte finish on all these baits. We'll talk about the bait, but like there's a few things that are interesting about this. So the biggest secret is the matte finish. That's something that we used to do. I got onto that. I figured that out a long time ago, mainly because fish were like chewing up the baits and they're getting rough. But the more rough they got, the more effective they were. So we started like rubbing our baits in the carpet of our boat, or I had a slab of concrete like behind my house, like a block, and I would just like go there every day at night before the tournament, and just rub for like an hour. Just rub the whatever plastic I was going to use.
That's crazy.
So we figured out how to get rid of the glare in the manufacturing process to create like a more dull finish.
Yeah.
So that's a tournament secret right out of the package. And then like also like all these little like marks here on the bait, like you can't really see it. You can kind of see
like little grooves or something.
So those aren't the purpose of those is literally teeth marks. So like we found that as the especially like a tube or some of the baits would get torn up by the fish, they got way better. So we were always trying to put little cuts in our baits and rub them up and make them look like they've been beat up by a fish, right? So we put those little scuff marks right on the baits, right in the manufacturing. And then also like the durability, like people probably don't realize this, but like, and this isn't TPE like Z-Man or anything like that Elastec stuff, like but this is a very easy to use material that we've got, but it's extremely durable. And that's really important for smallmouth anglers because smallmouth are schooling fish.
Yep.
And those bite windows could be very short. Like you could have 3 or 5 fish in front of you, and if you're in a tournament and all my brain is always in tournament mode, if I can have a bait that's going to stay on the hook and I can cast right back in after I've just landed a fish, that's way better than having to pull out a pack of baits, take time and rig it. By that time, that fish might have been gone. And that literally, those seconds that it would have taken to put a new bait might mean the difference between that extra bite I need to win the tournament. And those are like even those details, were really thought through. Like everything is about maximizing efficiency on the water, and for situations that we're presented with that we just didn't have the tools that we needed. So yeah, all of our baits are just like, honestly, like I said in the beginning, I never thought, my goal was never to be rich. My goal was to make baits for us to win. And all these baits aren't very flashy. Like most brands, their thought process is, okay, what's this going to look like on the shelf? Is it a shape that's going to sell? Right. Are we following a trend? Their focus is which stores are going to pick it up and will it move off the shelf? Will the angler see it in the store, understand it, and purchase it? My thought process is, what is this bait going to look like in the water? Is it going to, I don't care what it looks like. I just want to make sure a fish eats it. So are the claws going to lift? Is it going to have the matte finish? Is it going to hold up? I don't care what happens at the store level. If only one person, my thought process if only one person bought a bag of our stuff, at least I would feel good inside knowing that they got a quality bait and they're going to catch fish.
Heck yes, dude.
Yeah. And that was really, that really drove the demand, because it just turned into a word of mouth thing because of the quality. Like once an angler bought one pack, it wasn't long before they were going and buying another 5 or 10 or whatever. So when people buy from us, it's big numbers. It's not like one pack of this and one pack of that. They're buying a lot.
Yeah. So you have so many things that, golly, every time you talk, I want to make this podcast longer, but I also want you to be able to take care of yourself, Dan, and get some sleep. But a few things. Number one, I love the matte finish thing, because in my brain, if you go to our family, we catch a lot of crappies and stuff and bluegills and stuff for dinner for fun. And when they're not in the water, they're not shiny. Right. So that's just natural. That's what nature looks like. So whatever. And I don't know if that's even why you do it or what, but that just in my head.
That's 100% why we do it.
It just makes sense.
Yeah. So here's a nugget for people. If they're trying to catch the biggest fish in the lake, my belief is those big fish have seen everything, and you're not, for the big, especially smallmouth. Your goal isn't to make the fish feel like they see your bait. Your goal is to make that you're screaming come eat me. That's kind of the angler mentality. I got to jerk this thing, and I need bright colors, I need big spinner bait. Those will work. But the best scenario is when you put something in the water and the fish feels like that thing doesn't want to be seen, but I see you. That's really what's going to trigger them to bite, especially a smart fish that's seen a lot of lures. That whole oh, I see you, and you don't want to be seen. And these fish are a master of their environment. If you're sitting down watching TV and you got a white ceiling or whatever, and a little spider crawls on the ceiling, there's a good chance you're going to see that, even though it's really small. You'd be shocked at how these fish can find anything that's kind of moving or in their environment.
Super perceptive.
They're so in tune with what's going on. We're fishing in 50 feet of water, and we throw, or 40 feet, 50 feet, and we throw this little tiny drop minnow, and we can see them on a live scope, and they'll come 40 feet for it. And you're just wow, we're out in the abyss here, and they can see that little tiny bait. Yeah. So that's something that we really believe in, and I think really triggers, the big fish that, of course, we're after when we're fishing for these. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite of the lures you make or the baits you make? You have a favorite?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah. So this is, I don't know if you guys have fished the sneaky underspin. I don't know. So this thing, it looks like a normal underspin. I call this thing the lake vacuum. It's really small. It's got a 1/0 Gamakatsu hook. So you guys have probably seen underspins and stuff, but what separates these underspins here is so here, let me talk about the technique. So why I love this bait is everything in the lake eats it, and it's very easy to fish. So anyone can fish it. You just cast it out.
How do you do it? Yeah, tell me.
Just cast it out, reel it back. That's it. Okay. You don't impart any action. Just reel it and try to keep it above the fish's heads. That's all you got to do.
So does that mean rod tip up?
Well, it depends on the depth, I guess, where they're at.
I mean.
All right.
Yeah.
Just asking for us beginners.
No, I love that.
Yeah. So really easy. But this underspin in particular, so there are other underspins on the market. The first thing you'll notice is the eye is right at the front of the head. So ours actually swims perfectly level through the water. So if you like went to our website, you'll see our banner. Every banner has like it's swimming. So if anyone wants to see these baits in the water, go to our website, and every single product page has in the banner, so you know the product swimming through the water.
And it works just for a quick for people to know. It also works perfectly on mobile. That's not just a desktop thing. On your website,
what's the website?
The website is greatlakesfinesse.com, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, easy.
You click on each lure and it shows it like it said, like the juvie craw. You click on it and it shows like a really well shot, well edited video.
Nate's showing us.
Yeah, right there. I just think that's brilliant because every fisherman wants to see what they're looking at in the water, and you made it so simple.
Wow.
Yeah, we really focus on the underwater footage again because that's where our focus is in the development of the product. So that's where we believe we're separate from others.
Keep going. Sorry.
So for us, we're trying to catch the biggest fish in the lake. So we're trying to get this bait as far from the boat as possible because that's really your best chance of getting a big fish to bite. So the big difference, besides the eye placement and the components, is the fine wire Gamakatsu hook. So most underspins on the market, pretty much every single one except this one, has a thicker gauge hook. Ours is intentionally thinner wire because when you're using these long whippy rods, and we're using like 7.6, like mid sevens, medium light, fast action rods, they're very whippy. They're designed to absorb a lot of shock and cast little baits out far. I'm just trying to like educate people on why we use these.
This is helpful.
So
for sure.
In the super clear water, we're using like 4 and 6 pound test line on average. So you need a long whippy rod. These baits are really small, so you need that longer whip to get them way out there. And what we're finding is we first started fishing some of the ones that were like designed in California and those southern markets, but they were designed for like largemouth and spotted bass. And guys are using like heavier equipment. Well, we're using this light line. We just could never get good hook penetration with those thicker gauge hooks. So what we found was like it was like fishing like a frog in pads. Like it was just heartbreaking because we'd lose so many fish because we couldn't get good penetration. So and like I said, if anyone goes and buys those other micro underspins, like the small finesse ones, you will get bit. I really believe you're not going to land as many fish as you will with this if you have your setup right. So light line, a loose drag. You don't even really need to set the hook. You just reel into the fish. It loads up and you just kind of gentle sweep like fishing a drop shot. And your landing percentage will be well into the 90s with this one as opposed to one with a thicker gauge hook where you're going to lose, probably about 33%, like 1 out of 3 fish you're going to lose.
Wow.
A big one anyway that's going to shake it. So that's my favorite one to fish by far. It absolutely cleans up. Like, we're good friends with Smallmouth Crush. If anyone wants to go to his YouTube channel, he's posted a lot of videos. We've got videos on our YouTube channel showing like fish after fish, and they're big fish, and we're catching them on this bait. Right now, I'm kind of a little biased because we just dropped this is our 2.5.
So cool.
Juvie craw. And this thing's got a little bit of floating in it. So it actually, like the tentacles lift. You can actually put pressure on it so you can make the face kind of lift up a little bit. And anyway, it like I can't say every smallmouth angler, but every good smallmouth angler fishes tubes or has tubes in his boat. And for us, it's just such a boring category. And I felt like, okay, we've got this amazing tube head. We love fishing mini tubes, but there was also a lot of scenarios where we were finding that these fish were eating like little tiny juvenile craws, like really small ones.
Yeah.
And tubes are so versatile. Like you can do a lot of cool things with them. So we felt like, man, if we could design a tube, but that was also in the shape of a craw, that would be a game changer for getting more bites, but also still being able to fish it on like tube equipment. We really like, you can kind of fish them with a slightly thicker gauge hook and get really good hook penetration. Like this mini pro tube head that fits in there. We initially launched that product and it's now like a bestseller on like Tackle Warehouse and Omnia. And this thing is designed for mini tubes because no one else really makes a good mini tube head. Or like they're just too long. They sit too far back, or the eye isn't out on a 60-degree angle. There's a whole bunch of reasons why this one's really good, and it also sits flat, so it doesn't want to roll like other tubes. So
sure.
Actually wants to stay up, won't hit snag.
I think that's huge.
Yeah. So that's why it's so popular, and really, if you fish this tube head, the result is you're going to get far less snags. You're probably going to reduce them by like 75%. Wow. And you're also going to land like a lot more fish because the hook point is always faced up. So you're getting really good meat when you're setting the hook. Like it's always right where you want them, in the cheek or right in the roof of their mouth. And you just land a lot more fish when they're hooked there. So a lot of thought went into how that performed. So we were getting, because that product was so popular, people were messaging us like crazy saying like, when are you going to drop your tube? And like a normal tube, this is a normal tube. This is, one that we would fish before. That's pretty easy to make. But obviously for us, like in Great Lakes Finesse fashion, we had to take it to another level.
I love it.
Yeah. And just the technology in this thing, for most people, they'll never understand or appreciate some of the technology that's in this and some of the features. But like one of them is like, most tubes are just like, first of all, most tubes are salted, so they sink. Ours will float. Like these little appendages will actually lift and pulse. If you see the underwater footage of the bait, it looks really realistic and natural. The second thing is the tube, like this bait, isn't the same thickness throughout. So in the head, where the eye comes out, it's really thick there. But in the middle, it's actually much thinner. So you can really open up that gap on the hook set. Like you want it to be thin.
Yeah, that's smart.
Right in the nose, where the hook comes through, you can actually, do I have one? You can actually, here, I'll just do it. You can actually rig it because there's enough meat there to make it weedless. So we intentionally.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So we put enough meat there where if you're around vegetation, you can pull it through, right? So there's a lot of like thought that went into this. And we went through, I think it was around 8 to 10 versions of this, from the initial prototype to this version. And we probably had a good enough product at like version 5, but I was like, we can do better. And that's always been my motto. Like, if I think that we can push it more, we're going to. And I think we're seeing the results now. It's become like the absolute hottest seller right now in the industry. Like, from what the feedback we're getting from our dealers, like we had a retailer call us yesterday. It didn't even make it to the shelves, and he had to break up a fist fight in a store. He's never seen anything like it over this bait because he would sell it so fast. Like people were just like arguing over packs.
Oh my gosh.
That's the new benchmark, dude. That's it. If people are not willing to hurt someone else for your baits, you're not doing it well enough. That's the new.
Yeah, I got a kick out of that one. And this is
that's really funny.
Like an owner that's been around for as long as I've been alive. And I straight up asked him, I said, have you ever seen anything, a response like this to a bait? He's like, never. Ever.
Wow. That's so rad. Heck yeah.
So,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's got to feel really good.
It feels really good. And the reason it feels good is because our team put in so much work. Yeah. And I personally pushed them, in my opinion, to the absolute max. Like our designer, our engineering team, like there was many conversations about giving up on the product. And I had the support from upper management to say, look, like we need, we need to be pushing ourselves, because that's what's going to allow us to remain relevant. And this was a product that was really almost like a statement piece at Pragco. So no bait has ever taken this long or cost as much to develop as this little juvie. Yeah. So that, for me, and also the other thing too, like, of course, when Pragco merged with us, or we merged with them, there was a lot of chatter about like, oh, the baits won't be the same, because generally when a big company buys a little company, the company just doesn't, they change like the plastics and stuff and whatever. But for me, I was always like, no, that's not going to happen. We're going to do the same thing. It's going to be great. The identity is going to remain the same. And now this was kind of like that statement, like, look, GLF is still legit. This is what we're going to be. Cool. Yeah. So that product there, is really exciting, and everyone's really excited about it. And it's just all that hard work, blood, sweat, and tears that went into that thing. We're just really happy that the response was I mean, this response was way higher than we ever anticipated. So obviously we're really happy.
Yeah. Hey, so I think I have a good juvie bait idea for you. Just, take it or leave it.
Wow.
But a couple of years ago, Nate and I were fishing on what was that? Chippewa Flowage, which is a pretty big body of water in northern Wisconsin, and it was a smallmouth derby. And I would assume when you're talking about the small jaws eating juvenile craws, you're probably seeing a lot of them spit up in the live wells and such, is where some of that inspiration came from.
Exactly.
So my inspiration for you is we had a smallmouth spit up a baby rabbit in my live well. That's a true story. So I don't know if you want to go into product development or go back to the guys at Pradco and be like, hey, we have an idea. It might cost way more. And it may not catch fish, but apparently they will every once in a while eat a baby rabbit, which you got to think they had to hurt our bag that day that thing wasn't still in its mouth. Yeah, get back in there. But that's actually true.
I'm going to say this only because I'm friends with those guys and they're really great guys, but I think that's a really great idea for a lunker hunt.
That is, yeah.
If they're listening, I'm just messing with you guys. But yeah, we're cool. But that's something that they would roll with.
Yeah, something fun and kind of like the spider and like a bat bait.
The dino. They'll know what I'm talking about.
Okay. Yeah, dude, dang, I should have looked that photo up because we the really fast story. We went from weigh in at that tournament and then we went out to eat with a bunch of homies and we went to this tackle shop Nate and I did, and the live well just wasn't draining out of we have a Legend V20 and I'm like, what the crap? I know my live well drains fine. It should be good, whatever. And we pop it open. I'm like, what in the heck? I think Nate saw it first and then we pull it out. We're like, what is this? And it was literally one of the smallmouth had eaten like a juvenile rabbit and like spit it up in the live well. So
juvie bun.
Yeah, juvie bun. Yeah, talk to Lunker Hunt, see if I can get some money off them for royalties on that idea. But God. So before we let you go, Dan, and again, thank you so much for being on our podcast, dude. We seriously appreciate you. And I don't think anybody, man, who cares about fishing, cares about tournament fishing, cares about what company they choose to invest their money in. I don't know that anybody could listen to this so far and not want to go out and grab some GLF stuff.
If they can get it and not get
if they can find it without catching a black eye. But
I mean that's a rare situation, but I mean all I'll say is like we're so appreciative of all the support. It means the world to us, like just all the connections and the things that have come our way in terms of just like relationships, even meeting you guys. I mean, this is just an example of that, right? Like I've never met you guys and you guys seem so awesome and supportive, and like that intro, meant a lot to me when you spoke that highly of what we're doing. It just seems so surreal. So I really appreciate everyone who tries our stuff and everyone who supports us. I mean, it's really incredible. So thank you.
Heck yeah, man. Heck yeah. So, I mean, as you and I were talking beforehand, I used to work for a race car parts company, and it's a very similar story. It was a guy who had an idea for a part that ended up being a good idea. And then somebody was like, well, what's your next idea? And he's like, oh, what about this? And then that blew up. And I mean, that's how things are done by the right people. There's the people who are invested in the industry, care about it, and then go for it. But I want to ask you a couple quick things, and they may not be quick answers, but you just take whatever time you want. Number one, how do you go about two parts of developing a lure that I'm really interested in? Number one is just the overall design in terms of look. And then the other is design in terms of like I said in the intro, and I meant it, your lures sit right in the water, which might sound like, well, duh, it's a lure, but they don't all. They truly don't. I mean, if you have a swimming pool or if you live here in northern Wisconsin or up in Canada where the water's clear, there's been so many times, dude, I've bought soft plastics, thrown them on a head, thrown them off the end of a dock or whatever, and I'm so disappointed by how they sit or don't sit in the water. How do you come up with your ideas? Like, what's the story behind them? And how do you get them to sit just right like they do?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we can keep going as long as you want because I'm having a good time and I'm not tired. So
awesome. Okay, great.
I was going to sleep for a while anyway, so we can keep rolling as long as you want. I'm having a blast. For us, when we think about bait design, it's actually really not about bait design for us in our mind. It's about solving a problem. So
I love that.
All of the things. So when we're out on the water, we're always faced with different situations, and we're always thinking like, man, especially if we miss a fish or we can't present something properly to a fish, we're always thinking like, what would have made that situation better? And that's where every idea starts is, okay, that's something that we're seeing on a regular basis and we're not able to do what we want to do. So let's start there. So then the next part of the step is, okay, we're going to solve this problem with a bait. And then we list out all of the things that this bait needs to be able to do, because I want to be able to go back to that checklist to make sure we're solving the problem, because it's not about making something that looks cool. It's about solving a problem. And so then we'll come up with the idea. We'll brainstorm what this thing will look like, all the things it needs to do, and then we'll start drawing stuff. And then once we get a drawing, we're like, okay, let's go back to that checklist, do all these things. We just refine it and review that checklist all the time. Okay, is it still doing all the things we want to do? And that, a good example of that is like the tube, like a tube that's weedless. Well, the juvie craw, that was on our wish list. Well, being able to stuff that up there, like most brands would overlook that, but that's something that, because it was on our checklist, we made sure we incorporated that. So then we'll draw it, and then we'll bring it to the designer internally, who's fantastic. His name's Tyler. If he ever watches this, really appreciate the job he does, and he truly cares, and he really loves working on this stuff. So
shout out Tyler.
Yeah, Tyler's wicked. Actually, awesome. We'll talk about the Helgramite after, and Tyler did a really great job on that, and we'll talk about that. But so then we'll do a design, and then, you know, we try to refine that as much as we possibly can in that process, and then we'll manufacture a prototype. And
how many people are part of this?
Yeah, good question.
So
like narrowing it all down.
Okay, so in terms of like a bait idea, we usually try to involve at least 3 of our guys who are hardcore tournament anglers, so that we're all like on the same page of what the challenges that we're trying to fix. And then that way, none of us at the end, we're not like, oh man, like we missed that, like we should have brought that in. So by pooling ideas and having a conversation, not only are we thinking about all the angles, we're also all collectively getting really excited about this bait and what
that's cool.
Great. So that's really fun. And then we'll involve the designer. We'll involve, Pradco has a huge team, and we'll start to bring in the people that make sense for that specific project and can provide. It really just do that job the best is what we're getting right now. Is whoever can achieve what we're doing, depending on the project, we're going to get the best person for it. So we'll build a prototype, and then like this juvie craw, for example, we made our first mold. We designed it and everything, got our first prototype, and then we go and fish them. And we will not release a bait unless we've caught at least 50 fish on it, and it's got to like check all the boxes, and it's got to have performed in those situations. So the first version of this literally does not look like this, and it was very frail. So like I casted it out, and then I felt a bite. I set the hook. It came back with no tube on the hook. So like it was like immediate showstopper. And then so we had to fix that. So we went back to the drawing board, got another prototype. Where the hook sits in between the tentacles was never supposed to be there. It was actually supposed to be just in between them and not supported by the head. So then we found while we were fishing and casting it, the tentacles would flop on either side of the hook.
Oh yeah.
No good, right? So then we would make another one, and we just kept going through the process until we refined each section of the bait to perform. Like even the claws looked different in the first version. They weren't lifting quite enough. We don't want them to lift a lot. We just want them to kind of lift off the bottom a little bit, and then we wanted the tentacles to kind of lift a little bit. So like really dialing in the formula and also the design just took a lot of time. But then, like I said, and then once we feel like we've got a really good version, then we're going fishing. We're gonna make a bunch of these. We're gonna make the colors we're gonna use, and these baits were all used in tournaments. So last summer, I've got triplets. My tournament partner has 2 toddlers as well. So between the 5 of us, we got 5 kids between the 2 of us. They're all like really young, and so we only fished 4 tournaments last year, but we won 3 of them. And these baits were part of that. And one of those tournaments. I don't know if you guys saw, but we broke the record on the St. Lawrence for the biggest bag of fish ever weighed. So like it was in bass and wired to fish, and like
of course
I saw that. The 32 pound or 30 whatever pound bag.
Yeah, 32.5 pounds, and like
yeah, so silly.
So we're using these baits in tournament scenarios to make sure that not only are the baits. I know this sounds made up because I feel like most brands would never take it to this level, but it like to me, I refuse to take someone's money unless I feel like it like we've created something of value and
integrity. You're a good man.
Yeah, that is integrity.
So anyway, so that like that's kind of how I feel about all the baits, and we put them through the ringer, and then once we've caught at least 50. Usually it's way more. Like, I mean, a 50 fish day for us is very common up here. So we can catch 100. And, you know, as long as the bait, I'll give you another example. I mean, I got so many examples of this. Like I've got a bait that I've developed and I fished all last year, and it is a fish smasher. Like it gets bites like crazy, but we were losing fish. Like I was losing probably half of the fish on this bait.
Okay.
And it was a soft plastic, and we're going to bring it to market next year. But we were just like, man, like most people would think, oh, it's just bad luck, you're losing fish. And I was like, no, that's just not true.
Something
wrong with this. And I couldn't figure it out. It took me a while. And then all of a sudden I made one little adjustment in the boat, and I was like to the bait, and all of a sudden, boom, I was landing pretty much every fish. Like every fish that I hooked was in the boat. I'm like, boom, there it is. That's the adjustment we're gonna make. It looks a little goofy, but I don't want people getting bites and losing their fish. I want them to get bites. You still get as many bites, but you're going to land them. So, I mean, there's so many examples of that. I mean, even when like Pradco and us merged, we were scaling our production, and this Mini Pro tube head is like I literally pulled this off my rod because so there's line on it. So ignore the line. Like I literally pulled that Juvie Craw right off my rod. So there's a little tag end. But anyway, so this head is very specific. It just seems like a regular tube head to most people, but I've won more money fishing tubes than anything else. That's what I've just done my whole life is fishing tubes. So where the eye placement is, I need that eye to poke out just enough in the tube so that almost just my line fits through. And also I want it right at the front so that it can just kind of pop over snags. It doesn't want to if it was up here, it would just kind of get stuck more. It just looks more natural down there. And also you don't get any debris built up right here. So your tube is cleaner. So anyway, when we were moving production to Pradco, we were moving to larger molds and stuff. They initially, when they sent me prototypes of the new machines making these, this little eye was less than a millimeter too far into the lead. And no one would have ever noticed, ever. But for me, I just knew. And I remember having the conversation in the boat with my tournament partner. I'm like, man, what do you think of these? Like, oh, it looks great. I'm like, no, but look at our original. Look at this one. It's like half a millimeter. He's like, oh, dude, no one will ever notice that. I think you're probably okay. And I was like, okay. I don't want to really. I'd only been there with Pradco working. This is one of our first projects. I don't want to be a stickler like that.
Right.
I'm setting the tone, right? Who this guy is going to be. And I just remember going okay. And then I was initially fine. I was like, okay, I'm good with it. And then I couldn't sleep that night over this.
Oh, I love that, dude.
So the next morning I messaged him hey, how far are we into making the new version? We haven't started. I'm like, we need
thank God.
We need to adjust. He's like, if you think we need to, let's do it. And we did.
How cool for Pradco too.
And now, super. They're like, you make the call. And I was like,
wow.
We need to do it. And now every one of these in the pack, I feel so great about. And if I didn't make that adjustment, I'd feel so guilty knowing that we could have made it perfect.
Wow.
That's just for you, man.
Yeah. Of all the things that we do.
You mentioned the development of the Juvie Crawl, how it took a good while to get to the perfect version of it. Did having that perfect tube head already catapult that? Because had you not had the perfect terminal tackle for it, could have taken even longer, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, without the tube head, that's the foundation for the bait. So the bait is designed to fit this specific tube head. So You could use other tube heads, but you will not get the same performance out of the bait like you will with ours. But what I will promise people is that, you might already feel comfortable with a tube head. Just give ours a shot. I think you'll be shocked at how good this tube head is. I mean, we've got elite anglers. I don't want to name their names. I mean, that would be pretty bad, I think. I don't know if it's appropriate, but like someone who's won the Classic twice, let me just put it that way, he's fishing this tube head.
Okay.
So if it's good enough for that angler, trust me, it's worth a shot. So yeah,
right.
The bait is molded around that tube head. Not only because that tube head has the flat bottom, we want to keep the bait up. Even the bottom of the juvie craw is flat. You'll notice it's not round. So that way it always lands and sits upright, because if it rolls, it looks really dumb. So if you watch the video, we show an example of that. Our bait will always sit on the belly looking right.
Yeah. That's really specific too, because even again, I'm not trying to call anybody out, but the Mega Bass Sleeper Craw was a lure I was really excited about, and it's a cool lure, but those tentacles overlap the hook all the time. It's like you're crossing your fingers on somebody. It's all the time. Although I will say, you were talking about the rod you use, the Mega Bass Whip Snake is a dirty mamma jamma. I don't know what rods you use for medium light slinging, but that's a good one. But so you're talking, I can't help it now. Doggone it, I'm going into detective mode. He won the Classic 2 times. Is his last name rhyme with P? Is his last name a fruit? I'm thinking of who you're talking about. You don't have to say, but
right.
Thinking of the 2-time winner type humans. But how did you? Was it just trial and error, Dan? How did you get the baits to sit just the perfect way? I mean, was it just adjust the formula? How do you do something like that? Because I'm not trying to jerk your chain. They really do just sit perfect.
Yeah, I mean, a good example is the snack craw. So when we were developing the formula, I think we had 20 something versions of this.
It's cute.
Yeah, so don't be fooled. Don't be fooled if you go to the website.
Offering, right?
No, I wouldn't. Our flat cat. Yeah, it might be. Yeah, this is our 2.1 inch. So this thing here has caught us more 7-pounders than anything else. We've got a video of a 7-8 on film that we caught and landed on this thing. This is actually our new color. This is our green pumpkin orange. It's more like a brown. But so this bait, if anyone goes to the website, the claws actually just lift at more like a 45-degree angle, because in nature a craw isn't sitting straight up, right? So most companies,
that's what I'm talking about.
So much floating where it just they haven't even put any thought into it, just stands straight up and looks so unnatural. But we've watched literally thousands. Yeah, exactly. Look at me. The small fish are gonna be I'm in. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you can kind of see what it does, right? So we've literally witnessed and watched over the years thousands of small swallow baits in the shallows, nose down, and either turn away, and having those claws do what they do there, where they kind of as you pull the bait, they almost dip down and then they lift.
Just subtle, yeah.
Subtle lift happens, they're I'm in, and they commit to it. So they're it's incredible, and we just fished that right on our little ball head. So that's what the package looks like on our little stealth ball jig head, powder coated head, doesn't chip, and that's a Gamakatsu 604 hook, so it won't bend out. You can catch those big fish. I mean, I wouldn't use a flipping stick, but if you've got your drag set right and everything, you'll have no problem landing those big ones. So those are yeah, I mean, when it comes to nailing the formula, I mean, we're playing with micro levels of adjustments until, I mean, look, another thing that we do, I mean, this is kind of my motto, really everyone's motto is, first of all, if we wouldn't have these tied on in the biggest tournament of our lives, we're not going to release it. And
dude, come on.
I stand by that. So every bait that we make is made for us, right? It's us first, because this is the technique we want to fish. And so if I can make an adjustment that makes this bait 1% more effective, that might mean the difference between winning the tournament and getting second or third, right? So we're always going to strive to make it absolutely the best possible to give us the best shot to win the tournament. And so that's why we dial these things in as tightly as we do, because that's how we approach tournaments. We want our baits to perform the same way. So that literally
this makes me not want to fish anything else ever. Like I only want to use these baits. Besides Gill Tech.
Yeah. Hey, geez,
besides our sponsor. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This is different.
Yeah. No, as you can tell, I'm really passionate about it, right? And
yeah, it's obvious.
I love what I do. I wake up every day excited to get to work, and yeah, so much fun. Like it's just so much fun, and I think I do believe we're making a really good product, and that helps people catch more fish.
Yep.
Does your wife like to fish?
I've kind of ruined her a little bit because like when I go, I want to go for the full day, and I'm so like I'm not the type of fisherman who can
Stop looking at me like that.
I'm not I just can't bring myself to be like a recreational style fisherman where I control
it is hard.
Like when I'm fishing, I'm almost naming my bait. Like, what is Jimmy doing down there? Like, I'm so focused. Like that's to the level.
And Steph's like, "Hey, I'm over here."
Dude, I do the same stuff.
I don't even know if she's back there. Like we could have already moved spots, and if she fell in the boat, I wouldn't notice. She'll tell you. Like I do not talk, and I'm thinking about every rock that thing's crawling over.
Yeah.
Or, like, always envisioning a fish behind my bait, so I can't have a conversation. Well, little Jimmy's down there, like doing his thing,
Well, Jimmy,
you're like my Canadian twin because I do the exact same.
Yeah.
Okay, so really fast. I don't want to interrupt you, but really fast. So Lola and I, we went on a trip one time, and maybe this is revealing too much, but it's really funny. We were in a little cabin on a lake, and Lola is. Should I even share the story?
What story is it?
About the shaky head?
What did I do?
Anyway, Lola was in the bathtub, and I go into the bathtub with a shaky head tied on with a big bite bait squirrel tail worm on a shaky head, and it was on like a 16th-ounce jig head with a screw head.
Hold on, it was our
honeymoon, and she's in the bathtub, and all that implies. And I'm like, hey, look at this! When you drop it in the water, the tail sticks up just right.
And
I did it like in the tub
one time,
like with her in the tub. I did it like in the tub. I'm like, look at this! Look at this! Look at the tail! That little bit of flick.
You see that little flick?
Like I'm barely even moving it.
Yep, I see it.
Yeah.
Okay,
anyway, keep going. Sorry, but yeah. So you and I are very similar humans.
Yeah, I mean that's incredible that she puts up with that. I mean, my wife would put up with that, and that's why we're married. So I can see why you guys are together.
Yeah.
But yeah, like my wife came from like a really northern town, and like her whole family grew up fishing. So
cool.
And she'll be the first to admit the only reason why she dated me was because I fished. And yeah, and I worked at like fishing industry, so that kind of like was something that interested her, and so like it's really cool. Like I go fishing with her dad and go hunting with her dad.
Heck yeah,
it's awesome.
So sweet.
Yeah, we do that too.
Yeah.
Nate does that with his wife's dad.
Right,
they fish derbies
that's
together.
So sweet.
Yeah.
Which Nate, you need to get Alexis's dad on some of this stuff because he is like a tube-aholic. Like Nate's father-in-law.
Yes.
Every tournament they fish, that's all the dude throws is tubes. So I mean, like you could maybe like kind of 2024 him a little bit,
Yeah.
Well, I don't know because the tube that he will throw our first derby is currently tied in my garage from
last year
derby.
Yeah, you got to step him up, dude.
Just tie it on for him. Don't even
throw a juvie craw on there. He probably won't even notice until he starts catching fish on it and be like, man, I'm on him with these tubes today.
Yeah. Will you guys be at the Classic next week? Or
no, I wish. I mean, they asked me to come fish it, but I decided not to.
They actually asked me, so
no. I wish we could come down as like a media thing, but that'd be awesome to be there for sure. Speaking of which, I have this patch right here this hat is from 1989 Bassmaster Classic.
Nate and I were born.
This one. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh yeah,
1983.
There it is.
That's the patch from the '83 Classic. Who's winning this Classic, Dan? Who are you calling? What's your prediction?
Ooh, I mean, prior to forward-facing sonar, I would have said Luke Palmer or Stetson. Or sorry, Stetson or Christie. It's just their home water.
Kenta too, though, right? Kind of. Maybe not home water, but it's his backyard-ish.
So someone you might want to keep an eye on is Cooper Galot. He's a local up here, but he's really proficient with his electronics, and that lake really kind of sets up well for him. So he might be a little sleeper for you there. I think he might do all right, but obviously I'm rooting for Luke, Stetson, Christy. They're going to be fishing this stuff, and yeah, or they might be fishing. It really depends on what they find and what they're doing, but I know they'll certainly have it in the boat.
Yeah,
and I'll be rooting for them regardless of whether they're fishing this or doing some power.
I think. Yeah, in our classic prediction show, I mentioned Luke Palmer as
how could you not?
A guy to watch out for. Yeah.
I think he's gained a lot of confidence in the last year, and I think he's gonna kind of take his career to the next level. He's always been very consistent, so I can see it's his backyard too.
Yeah. Also,
great how that little bit of added confidence can really catapult a guy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, Stetson. That's a Loophole guy, or Leopold. Maybe we could ask him.
Leopold.
But he's a Loophole sponsored fella, so we're basically on the same team. Us and Stetson Blaylock.
Yeah.
But yeah. So one thing we got to ask you before we get up out of her, Dan, and I mean, I know you had no idea what you're getting yourself into on this Her podcast, but we got to talk tacos a little bit. And how far are you from Toronto?
About an hour.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had a homie who was, I can't remember if he was just east or just west of Toronto, but he told me it's like the coolest food city ever because it's just so insanely diverse.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering if you could give us any insights on some Canadian tacos. Also, I just want to thank you as a Canadian, as ignorant as this is going to sound. This is going to sound dumb as could be.
Oh my.
Poutine is the dopest thing in the world. I wish it would kind of matriculate down this area more, but gosh, you're talking about cheese curds, gravy, and fries. How can that not be like an international?
One of our first dates, we had it, and we were like,
yeah,
this is good.
How are you with me?
What?
I took you out to poutine and then like jigged a shaky head in the bathtub. Man, I sound like such a turd. But anyway, tell us about some Canadian, like Toronto type tacos, Dan.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't been into Toronto really for any gourmet food since the triplets have been born. It's been
that makes sense.
A little bit more challenging, and when we go, like, I don't know, we probably more veer towards so there's a few, like there's one called like I think it's La Carnita. I think they make really good gourmet tacos, and
okay.
I mean, there's really not, like, my wife and I loved going to Mexico and Cabo and stuff. So I mean, that's really where we love those tacos because they're just so authentic, right?
Yeah, dude.
The actual proper like taco, breads and stuff. So anyway, I'm more of a soft shell taco kind of guy than a hard shell. I don't know what you guys are.
Nice.
Flour or corn?
Probably for me, flour.
Flowers.
No. My wife likes corn, but I like flour. I don't know. I'm more of it's more of a texture thing for me.
I get that. I totally get that.
Yeah.
For sure.
But there's another one I'm really excited about up here. It's opening up. Apparently, it's like all the rage in Toronto. It's actually gonna move. They're opening another one in Peterborough, I think this month. It's like Ghost Taco, so I'm excited for that.
Ghost Tacos. That sounds cool.
Oh, we gotta look that up.
Yeah, it's got like a really good vibe from what I can see, and looks like they do it right. So I'm excited about that.
Wait, how old are the triplets?
You do it.
I'm sorry.
Said, right? Almost 3, right?
Yeah, there'll be 3 at the end of April.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Nate.
I just was gonna ask if he does any taco cooking himself.
Oh,
that's a good question.
You guys do much cooking at the house, or?
I would say we used to. Like, my wife and I used to do a lot of fish tacos. I love going like for perch or crappie and doing fish tacos. Like that was like 2 times a night, like a week we would do that.
Yes. Hey, 2 times a night's okay too, dude. Seriously, that's so
2
good.
times a week.
I mean, honestly.
We would continue to do that, but the challenge has been finding enough time to actually go and catch. Between now, like, pretty much all of my fishing time is now devoted to, either tournaments or
R&D
testing this stuff, right? So I don't have a lot of time anymore to go.
Yeah.
So we're kind of short on fish, really. That's our problem. And I can't buy fish at the grocery store. It just kind of grosses me out. I don't know what it is.
We don't either.
But I know I just can't do it. It's all slimy and old looking, and who knows how it was handled, and I don't know.
Totally.
But I'll go. Yeah. So anyway, we used to do them a lot. Now we haven't done them very much, just because it just takes a little bit more prep with 3 kids. So our meals are more like, pre-made. Like, we make in bulk or whatever.
Or what can I throw in the crock pot that'll be ready?
Exactly. A lot of crock pot, a lot of like simple stuff.
I'm all about that. We have a big family.
Yeah, we have 6 kids, Lola and I do. So like we totally get we get
wow.
Yeah.
And you guys you got look how happy you are. And, like doing this podcast. That's incredible. Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll take all the kids out on the boat.
Yeah.
That's why we got a Legend V20. The deck is like, the beam is like 190 inches. I mean, it's gigantic, but not literally, of course, but it's a big one. But yeah, so I mean, like when Lola and I go to like fish tournaments or whatever, like it's just so much preparation and timing and like trying to figure out who can take what kid and how we can make sure they're whatever. But yeah, I agree with you. Like, cause we'll all go out and fish. We have a little local lake right by us. We were talking about it in the intro, like going live scope and trout lately, which unfortunately Wisconsin isn't open for like keeping until May 3rd, or we'd have just a stockpile of trout, smoke them up, throw them in a taco. I feel like that would be awesome. But I totally agree. Eating, even when you go by the daggum like little glass display thing for like a grocery store, the fish in there just don't look appetizing to me. Like they don't look like I want to eat it.
Sometimes he'll come home and I'm like, oh, I have something in the crock pot or whatever. And he's like, I really want fish tacos. I'm like, all right, let's go to the lake. And if we don't catch anything, then we have this meal. And if we do catch something, we can have the meal tomorrow.
Yeah, we usually end up with fish tacos though, like some big crappies or even pike. Like people sleep on how good pike are. If you fillet them right, get the Y bone out, or even do like the spine fillet, like the big strip. And I mean, that's a good
piece,
that's a good little fish. They're easy to catch. They're all over. Are your lakes open right now, Dan? Or are you still hard water up there?
Actually they're opening up. I think we're gonna have an early season here. I think everyone's kind of feeling that as well. I'm really excited about it. Obviously, sucks for the ice fishermen, but selfishly, we've got an open bass season that goes till May 10th here, and it's all pre-spawn smallmouth, and I'm really excited to get out there and fish in that early pre-spawn with some of these baits, and really I think like this little hellgrammite is going to be like absolutely deadly. We just released that one. Actually, I mean, I feel like we'd be doing your viewers a disservice by not giving them a little hint on the juicy hellgrammite. I don't think people realize how effective these are, but this is a really effective style. A very effective soft plastic. We've been keeping the hellgrammite a secret for a long, long time, and there's very few brands that have actually attempted to make a hellgrammite, and no one's really done it right. And I believe that we have. But if people really need to consider adding a hellgrammite to their arsenal, because it might be the most effective bait at times, like especially during the summer and pretty like any rivers and even lakes, like they eat a lot of hellgrammites and no one throws baits that look like them.
It's true. So, they are all over, like north to south.
Such a unique profile that just, man.
Are you mostly drop shotting that, or what are you?
So this is really the first one that can actually be fished properly on a drop shot. So like I said, I've been watching this category of bait for a long time because hellgrammites are so effective. Like we use them in tournaments all the time and have won lots of money on hellgrammites, but most of the ones that are made either like are dense and they sink, or they float like crazy and they're hard to work with. And most of them are fish Ned style, so like on the bottom. So you can pair this thing with like our ball head and drag that thing on the bottom. But what we found is that if you can present one on a drop shot, it is like incredible. It could be the best. It could be the best type of soft plastic you can drop shot. And we like smoke fish on these hellgrammites. So we like when we were thinking about designing our own hellgrammite, this is like the smallest one you'll find on the market that's designed for big fish. Like there's some designed for panfish that have like goofy profiles, but this one's actually designed for landing those giant smallmouth and bass really. But it's got our true neutral buoyancy, so it'll sit perfectly horizontal in the water without having to move it. Like you just dead stick it and it just kind of like undulates in the water, and they like absolutely eat it. It's got our matte finish, and it, in my opinion, is by far the best one. So I feel like as excited as I am about this the Juby craw, from a fish catching standpoint, I think the Hellgrammite might be sneaky better, and people don't even realize.
Those creepy little legs.
Yeah, I literally said that a little bit ago,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm more stoked about the juvie craw just in terms, like the old phrase, some lures are meant to catch fish, some catch fishermen. And I think somewhere in the middle there is not a bad place to be because that juvie craw is freaking cool looking. But I said, I think the Hellgrammite might catch me more fish. I really do. I mean, especially on I could be wrong, Dan, because I don't know what I don't know. I'm not the smartest human ever. But to me, it looks like the Hellgrammite would be a little more subtle than the drop minnow on a drop shot in terms of movement. Or am I off there?
You'll definitely have much less. It's more of a do nothing. And if you look at the underwater footage, it's just got this like
just a little bit of like undulation, sort of.
Yeah, it's very little, and it's very subtle. Those little those little legs on the back just kind of undulate a little bit. They're really thin, and there is a bit of pulse in there, so it's really good. I mean, like you said, I think like the juvie craw is an absolute fish smasher. I don't want to take away from it at all, but if you were to say, hey, like you can only fish one bait in the tournament, and I was going to go like in the summer, and you said, look, you can't have both, I'd probably choose this little guy.
Wow. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. So
you guys have just released some pretty good videos too, displaying both of those on your YouTube channel too, right? On Great Lakes Finesse YouTube channel.
Yeah, they're both displayed there. So yeah, I mean, those are two really exciting products for me. I've been wanting to do them for well over a year. Like we just couldn't release any products for a long time because we couldn't even keep up with demand on the existing product line. So we had no capacity for new stuff. So those two were like at the top of my list of like, they have to come out next.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
What is it, Dan? What is it like? The Classic is coming up. It's for most bass tournament fishermen, that is the tournament. I mean, that's not a diss to Major League Fishing or the NPFL or whatever. No diss whatsoever. But the Classic, it's the Classic. What is it like, man? Knowing that there are going to be a whole lot of anglers out there using baits that you designed, that your company produces. What does that feel like?
It's pretty surreal. It's like, I can't believe it. I don't know how else to describe it other than that. Like you never think that that's even possible when you start. I mean, you hope that a guy might pick one up in a tournament.
Sure.
But these guys are so particular about their stuff, and they're set in their ways in a way, but they're also very open-minded. And for them to respond to our brand and our products the way they have is just like, I mean, I can't really think of any other word other than shocking. But how
Gosh, I love that. So humble.
Yeah, so that's probably the word that comes to mind for me, is like it hasn't even really set in. And I think something that I'm really trying to do is trying to like take in these moments, but these moments keep happening so fast. Like something awesome will happen, and then like a few hours later, something else awesome will happen. I feel like there's times where I'm moving so fast that I just don't have time to sit there and appreciate. Like, I feel like it was almost more exciting when the first Elite guy was, made a purchase on our website than now, when if I'd be shocked if like not almost the entire field has at least something of ours that they're using. But I feel like I haven't had time to process that. You know what I mean? Like it just hasn't.
Yeah.
Like especially when they come north, I'd be shocked if like our stuff isn't being utilized in practice at the very least. So, but I haven't had time to process all of this stuff, and I'm sure there will come a time where I'll be able to sit back and think about like where we started and where we are now, and hopefully where we are in the future, and like just like I really appreciate I really appreciate it as we go, but just like have those feelings that I feel like I'm kind of missing out on just because we're moving so fast right now.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's a kind of weird amalgam. So you're excited about right now, you want to press pause and celebrate what you've accomplished, but there's no rest for the weary. You got to keep moving forward. Do you feel any pressure in terms of the next thing and the next thing and the next thing?
I've never really thought about it because, it's never been about trying to do anything that's not authentic for us.
Mhm.
So,
It's organic. You're not forcing it.
Yeah, and the thing is, at the end of the day, as long as we stay true to our mission, and that's, making baits that we would use in the biggest tournament of our lives, and we're not going out of that, then I'll never feel bad or feel pressure that maybe something isn't well received, because I'll know that at the end of the day, we still believe in it that much. And if people don't take to it, that's fine, because we still love it and we still are doing the things that we want to do and we know will work for us. So yeah, not a lot of pressure there really on that front. My only pressure. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I feel like a lot of that comes from that like earlier statement you said, where you're not really developing baits, but you're solving a problem. Like in the fishing or in your way of attacking the smallmouth. So that's really cool.
Yeah, exactly. As long as we continue to remain focused on doing those things, I think we'll be fine. And my biggest pressure is just making sure that the quality remains the same, and then we're like producing enough. But quality is the only thing that really keeps me up at night, because that means everything. If there's two things that we need to do well all the time, is quality and customer service. Those have to be absolutely nailed, otherwise you've got nothing. Yeah. So
do you think our kids could fish this? And by our kids, I mean more specifically the boys, or Dom or Vinny. Do you think they would be able to finesse?
Well, that's something that's how I actually wanted to ask you, Dan. Like, don't you think that this method of fishing, as specific as it is, I don't want to say it's necessarily easy, but I feel like it's attainable by the masses. Like, it's not like skipping a jig 30 feet under a dock that takes years and years and years and years of practice. Like, I mean, what do you think about that, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, once you understand what you're doing, I mean, it's really easy, right? You're just, the only adjustment that people have a really hard time, I know they do, is the idea of really light line, and also, understanding the limits that you can take that line, and then how to like maximize like your efficiency with light line, long rods. Other than that, I mean, there's not a whole lot to it. Like, you spot a fish, you throw a small bait instead of a big bait at it. You throw a slightly lighter line, a softer rod. That's really the only adjustment. And then mentally, I know that some people really struggle with, they'll order a pack of our stuff and then they get it and they're like, this is so small. Like, it almost is shocking to them.
Yeah.
How small it is. And they almost, their brain can't compute that
can't put it together.
Something so small. And I know that one of our team members, like, that's like with us, like, he's starting, like, that was his initial struggle with it, was like, this is just like, he's from the south, right? Like, it does not compute.
Big baits equals big fish.
Yeah, he's going like, like, this is like, we're in the midst of the big swim bait craze, right? And here we are going like, little tiny baits catch big fish, and everyone wants to like throw mega giant baits and be the next YouTube guy that's cranking in giants. And here we are, just like, look at us with our fairy wands and little tiny baits. Like, look at us, and I think that, like, people are really starting to understand, and they're seeing it in tournaments, like how consistent that giant swim bait is. Like, finesse is just far more consistent on winning than a giant swim bait, especially at the elite level over 4 days. It's just hard to find scenarios where that is effective for a long time. But finesse is always effective.
I mean, how many times have you, Dan? How many times have you, Nate? How many times have we gone to the boat ramp or something to go launch the boat, and you're talking to some old guy or whatever, and there's not a bait caster to be found on their rig. It's all old spinning tackle. Like, I just feel like, and obviously you can get pretty specific, like I said, like a mega bass whip snake, or like a higher end rod that's built real specific for this kind of fishing. But everybody's got a spinning rod. our boys have spinning rods, our girls have spinning rods. Like they'd have the time of their life throwing a kind of a Ned rig on that teeny little craw. Or I just think that I think they'd kill it, and I think it'd be easy. I was teaching the boys about drop shotting the other day.
How were they doing?
Fine. It
really?
wasn't hard at all, because it just made so much sense to them. Like the bait isn't on the bottom. The weight is.
Yeah, if you explain it to them in detail, they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it was really logical. And so to do it with some good baits, it's not a hard sell.
Yeah. I think that's what's cool too about these little baits is like you're just gonna get a lot of bites. Like if you put it in front of big fish, they'll eat it. But also if you put it in front of any fish, they're gonna eat it. So I think it's just a fun way to fish. Like anyone who's getting into fishing, you fish these tiny little baits, you're just gonna catch a lot of fish. And they might not even be
perfect for anybody, but especially kids. Like the boys are 13 and 11, and so they're almost 11. Shout out to Vinny because this will come out on his birthday.
I'm digging in the cooler. I'm digging in the Kenai cooler. I got a whole mess of these in there. But can you do the Vanna White thing with this? Is this your? Let me ask you this. And if you can't say whether or not it is, you don't have to. But is this your best seller, the drop minnow?
That was my guess as well.
So from the soft plastics, yes, it is our top seller.
Flip it, right there. Get you. Yeah. So that lure, that little, put your hand behind it, bird. Right. Yep. Right there. Yeah. That little bulb on it. Look at. So she's not moving. And it's still, this is in dried like land, and it's still flopping around. I mean, you don't have to do anything. So you say like a do nothing bait, it's kind of that, except for when you do nothing, it still does something. How much development went into just that little ball on the end of the tail of this thing?
Quite a bit actually, because we were trying to get the right
specific.
Yeah, we went through a straight tail initially, and then we were like, it's not quite doing what we wanted to do. Oh wow, yeah, you're committed. That's great.
Yeah, we got more. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Go fishing.
No, thanks for your support. That's fantastic.
Yeah, no, I did not, man.
Full disclosure, I did not give them to you.
Yeah, no, these are. And here's the best part. I was in Madison a couple months ago, something. Frozen water, everything. They had one end cap of Great Lakes Finesse, and there was probably 20 pegs, and these were 3 of the last bags they had.
Wow.
So like, I'm stoked on the colors because these are really, really dope colors, but like there was nothing.
He's like, I want more.
Where was this? Sorry.
This was at Bass Pro Shops in Madison, Wisconsin.
And the end cap was clean?
Like the end cap was just about cleared out. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Because you probably know this too. Like if you go to a new lake, a new body of water, a new area, and you go to a local shop, if there's, let's just say, using your old employer, let's say you're going to get some Rapala DT10s, and there's 15 color assortments, and they're all full except for one only has like 2 left. That's the local juice. That's the color you go for. Like, that's just logic. And so I was looking for, the ones that were really low, except for the ones that were really low were just freaking empty. So like it just didn't really pan out for me, but it's just so tell me about the development of this thing.
Yeah. We actually partnered with a friend of mine, Smallmouth Crush, Travis Manson. He's got a YouTube channel. I don't know if you know him, but
everybody knows Smallmouth Crush.
Yeah, really good dude. I've gotten to know him over the years, and it was funny because I was keeping when I started the brand with my co-founder, we actually flew right under the radar. Like all our fish pictures and stuff didn't have our faces, our names, nothing, right? We really wanted to see if the baits would do the talking. And Smallmouth Crush Travis, actually, I was already friends with him, but he didn't know I was working on this. And he followed the page pretty early, and I called him immediately. I'm like, hey man, you just followed my business. He's like, come on, that was you. And after that, we started talking, and then we talked about a bait idea, and we just came up with the idea to develop a Smallmouth Crush design bait. So we basically collectively came up with this design. It was actually, as much as it's a drop shot bait, it was the premise of it was really for that Cindy rig and hovering.
Oh, sure.
Like this was like 3 years ago before anyone was even talking about
doing
it.
That. Yeah.
Yeah. So we were thinking of little tiny, like 1/16 ounce heads with the drop minnow, spotting them on the live scope. No one was really talking about it or doing it. And we would just hover the bait over their heads and then kind of let it pendulum over. So that was really the premise for this and the Cindy rig. And we wanted that little tail. So when you're pulling it through the water, the reason why we went with the bulbous tail is because the whole rib body moves water, but then when it gets to the tail, we're not. So what's interesting is it's almost, I don't know if this is like, and I might be like, some of the elite guys might be like, you're crazy, but everyone's shaking their minnow like crazy. We don't shake ours at all. We actually just like reel it straight back, or like barely do any movement with it. And when we were designing it, we wanted the water to flow through it. And if the straight tail didn't work, because then it would just not do anything, but that bulbous tail actually just kind of moves. It catches that last bit of water, and it just does like random little movements, but very subtle. You can actually see it on the underspin video. You can, when there's that back view, you'll see the tail kind of just like it's very random. It's not like side to side, or it's like you don't know what direction. This little bulb was just kind of like, you know, and that was when we were
almost like a hunting action.
Yeah, it was like very random, and that's smallmouth love random. Like the more random, like you want your jerk bait to go in. You don't want it to consistently go back and forth. You want it to go up, side, down, and they just like, it drives them crazy. So that was the premise behind the bulb, and having that little bit of movement when we're just reeling it straight. I think we're going to see an evolution of the jig and minnow that we're seeing, like the forward-facing sonar thing. I think everyone's kind of, there's a handful of guys that were kind of doing that, and then everyone's kind of following the crowd right now on that. We're going to start to see people present that bait a lot differently, because I've experimented a lot with that style, and also just like a straight retrieve, and I found the straight retrieve works a lot better. And I'm not saying I'm an elite level angler, but I think that a lot of them are chasing that style because a handful of guys are doing it, and and they're just like in catch-up mode a little bit. We're going to see them as they get a little bit more proficient with their technology. And I mean, even us, like, I'm not saying I'm an expert by any means. I don't want anyone to think that, oh, Dan thinks he's full of himself, he knows everything. I actually am learning all the time, but that's just my guess, is that they're still in that early learning stage, and we're going to see a lot of change over the next couple of years on how these baits and the minnow might even go away, might even turn into other baits. I think it's going to be really cool to watch and see how these guys evolve, because they are the best in the world.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a really good place to wrap it up. Lola, Nate, you guys have anything else?
I learned so much, and now I just want to go fish.
I know, I do too. Well, we can. Our lakes are open here. We can go hit it up. We've been fishing. I don't know. Do you suggest any specific technique for giant brown trout and rainbow trout, Dan?
Ooh, this little sneaky underspin I catch brook trout on.
Do you really?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I mean, I've yet to think of a trout species that won't eat a hellgrammite.
Yeah, that's very true.
Anything.
Good point. Yeah.
Full of them. So, if I was throwing anything in my lineup, or our lineup, I should say, it would definitely be throwing that little underspin around. Are you fishing lakes or creeks?
Well, yeah, our lake is dual creek fed. There's two big creeks that flow into it, and I think that's where most of the big trout are coming from. But that also results, it's like I think it's 79 acres. It's super small, but it's literally at the ramp from our house as the crow flies is less than a mile away.
Yeah.
So we just go throw in there real quick. It's electric motor. Well, you can use your big motor, but it's no wake. And we went out there looking for bass, and we caught some good ones. One of our boys caught a 3.8, one caught a 3, and these are little dudes, having the time of their lives. And then we started
so excited.
We started live scoping trout, and we're just smashing them. And I'm like, dude, that would be fun to actually try and figure these little buggers out. But
I mean, that's not our norm at all.
We'll jump online and buy some crap tonight, dude.
Let's do it.
Why not? But anyway, Dan, thank you again for coming on the show, man. We appreciate the fire out of you. We wish you nothing but the best moving forward. Hope the classic is awesome for you. I would love to see somebody win the classic on one of your baits, and then you're really going to be, not necessarily in trouble, but I mean, shoot, if you're running out of stuff now, it'll be like the smelting times two, like when that lure takes off, and just, that's awesome.
Yeah. I hope you and your wife can have a date night and go get some yummy tacos.
Yeah. Go to Ghost Taco.
For sure. Yeah. Now I'm craving tacos.
Yeah.
Boy. That's how it always is for us. We have this podcast, and then and then we just leave hungry.
Like, but tacos or nachos or something.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Dan. We appreciate you, man.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun. Yeah.
All right, brother. We'll bug you later. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.
Peace.
That was so fun. I learned so much.
Dude. So like real talk.
Awesome.
We could talk for like another hour, 2 hours. We could have a 4-hour long podcast.
Yeah.
What a cool cat. Yeah, I think the thing that stood out to me the absolute most was twofold with him, and I'll let you guys barf what you think too.
Right.
Number one is passion, and number two is humility. And humility, people very often, I think, define erroneously by saying like a lower view of oneself. I think true humility is like just kind of knowing who you are and what you're about without being puffed up. Yeah. And I think that's where he's at, which is such a dope spot for somebody who develops baits. Really. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. I think a big part of it is like his, we touched on it a little bit, but like integrity, like not wanting to just, now that he can and has the backing and the help to just push out a bunch of product and move baits like crazy, but to still develop the best absolute product he can. And again, something that catches the fish and not the fisherman. Like that's from like, the majority of what we talked about was, his integrity and wanting to keep true to what they were doing and doing it at such a high level. Like that's so.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, the tube head, the tube jig head, a millimeter on where the eye was.
Or a half a millimeter. He couldn't sleep. It's like,
that's a result of. And I'm not a big cusser, a big cuss type guy. I almost said cusher. I'm not a big cusher usually, but that's the result of a dude who gives a shit about what he's putting out. Seriously. Like actually legitimately cares. Like legitimately is invested in it. Like
that makes me want to buy all the things.
Yeah, how could you not?
Just that alone.
Real talk. I'm gonna go before we go to sleep, and I'm tired as crap, and I gotta wake up in like 5 hours.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go buy a whole bunch of stuff.
Let's do it.
I mean, honestly, like I've always known the stuff was dope. I love the stuff I already have, and then to talk to the dude behind it. Like people say, I wouldn't go so far as to say that Dan's my hero because I just love his baits and what he's doing. Yeah. But people always say like you never want to meet your hero, because you'll be disappointed. Well, in this case, I'm meeting the man behind the curtain, and I want to invest more of my money into the company, not just for the sake of they catch lures, but you believe in the dude. It's like what's that movie, Tommy Boy? Like everybody believed in the dad so much that they're like, what does he say? I could print guarantees on a box, but it's more about the man who made the guarantee. Like the dude is a dude. He's a fisherman. He's a good guy. He's a humble guy. He's got 3 awesome kids with cool names and
coolest names
and a wife who supports him, because I promise you, he couldn't do what he does if his wife wasn't as supportive in the background. So that's dope too, dude.
It's amazing.
Absolutely. So that's it. We'll wrap it up there. 2.5 hours into, no diss to anybody else, but maybe my favorite podcast we've ever done.
That's so fun.
Just super fun.
Heck yeah.
Learned a ton.
That was awesome.
Yeah, I feel like equipped. Like I wanted to talk to him more too about like, what reels are you using? Oh,
I could tell.
My brain was going so much. Like, are you using like a Daiwa Exist? Are you using a Shimano Stella? Like, because the drag on those is just so far superior to cheaper reels, whatever.
He talked a little bit about the ultralight line, the 4 and 6 pound test. Is that straight fluoro? Is he throwing braid to leader? Like what?
Yeah.
What does that look like? And that Helgramite, like I'm pretty stoked on that bait. I think
that looks so freaking
that's
good.
A bait that could, that could really catch them around here. That's super dope.
Yeah, especially where you are on the Quad Cities, because Helgramites are like the larval stage of a bug that really usually happens in like flowy waters. So like a flowage, a river, a creek, or whatever. I mean, you could smash them, especially early season when it's a little clear on the Mississippi. I mean, it's more of a summertime bug, but I think you could just crush them. I think who I was thinking the whole time too, like one of my favorite anglers ever, top 3, I'd say, who would just eat this alive would be Aaron Martins. I feel like he would murder some Great Lakes Finesse stuff because he was just such a genius with like the light gauge, light wire hooks for penetration on long casts or deep drop shotting, or there's those videos of him out there drop shotting barefooted in like 4-foot swells in the I feel like he would just embody the whole GLF thing. I think he would kill it. But anyway, you got anything else, Lola?
Well, I was supposed to ask a question, but I still don't have one.
You got one?
No, I still don't have one. Nate, do you have any tattoos?
No, I don't have a single tattoo.
Okay.
My body's a temple, so I keep that in.
Oh my gosh. Oh my, shut up. Shut up.
There's my question.
Hey, that's my favorite. That's my favorite thing that old like Christian people say though. It's like my body's
For
a temple.
real.
Like, oh yeah, how those 4 hot dogs you just put down do for your temple?
Right.
F out of here with your LA Gear hair gel. You ain't
We
doing
love
no temple.
Jesus over here. Okay.
Yeah, but come on,
real.
dude. Take that temple talk somewhere else.
Oh
But
my God.
whatever.
I'm totally kidding about that too. I absolutely love tattoos, and I've thought forever about getting one and getting multiples, but then I spend my extra money on fishing tackles. So
Indeed.
And tacos,
which is a good, it's a good side. Yeah, I've been thinking about getting the top of my hands tattooed,
like actually,
like legitimately, like on the like a old school like Sailor Jerry, like a bass on one hand, like a largemouth or a smallmouth, and then a pike on the other. Because my family, that's what got me into fishing, was like going pike fishing up in Hayward.
And I'll get
like
matching.
Really cool,
I'm just kidding.
I don't know, and I know hand tattoos can be a sketchy proposition, but I just think it looked really dope. Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, all right, that's it.
That's about all you got left. So
that's about all I got left. Yep, for sure. Yeah. Whoa. That's it. What do you got, Lola? Hit us up.
Well, positivity is worth the effort.
Absolutely.
See you on the next one.
Peace.
Appreciate you guys. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
I think I just got bit on the butt by a mosquito, and I'm not even kidding. I'm not going to use that as the intro, of course, but I'm pretty sure I just did. So